You know, I grew up in North Atlanta, and I lived in Marietta, and there was no true distinction between Marietta and Atlanta as far as the Atlanta metro area. But here in Idaho, it is a little unique in that we have corporate lines that are drawn, or county and city lines that are drawn that are different than other areas that have a stronger, bigger market. So if you go to a city such as Tampa, and we've had a development take place in the city of Caldwell from Tampa, Florida, a developer come out, he talked to me about the city of Caldwell, and I said, hey, here's who we are. I started naming off all these tremendous assets that we have in our community. And he said, tell me the story of the region. That's more important to us. Essentially, we draw a radius around the metro area, which is the capital, Boise in this case, and we want to know more about the region as a whole because it's more powerful for us to understand that perspective. So we looked at this from a regionalism perspective as it relates to recruitment, as it relates to identifying the area, and how strongly we can advertise the city of Caldwell in conjunction with the corresponding cities in the Treasure Valley.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Councilor Sadek, your question.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. When you talk to anybody as far as new business here in this area, do you tell them to fly in Caldwell, or do you tell them to fly into Treasure Valley Airport?
Do I tell them to find Caldwell? I'm sorry.
Yeah, do you tell them to fly into Caldwell Airport, or do you tell them to fly into Treasure Valley Airport?
So when we work with groups that are visiting the area, it is more advantageous for them to fly into Caldwell.
Okay.
So to the extent that we can, we love to have site visits take place in Caldwell and never leave our area. We fly here, see the site in Caldwell, leave Caldwell, and go back to their original destination.
So the name of the airport is pretty important, though, right? I mean, okay, and then the other thing, I just wanted to give you an observation. In my prior life with the Simplot company, I had close to 350,000 miles on United Airlines, and I had probably even double that on private Simplot Airlines. And I know that one time we flew into Nebraska looking for areas to develop potatoes and new areas for potato processing plants. There was a mix-up between O'Neill Airport and Bassett Airport, Nebraska, and they're very small, as you know. And at that time, we were flying in a Hawker 700, and if my memory serves me right, I think it takes about 3,800 feet to land and 5,800 feet, something like that, take off. And we wanted to fly into O'Neill because that's where the potato growing area was, but when we got to the airport, because of the name change, there was some confusion with the pilots because of the name change, so we had to fly into Bassett because it was an old Air Force runway or something. So to me, safety is pretty important. And even when you know, on the pie chart, when Mr. Oates showed you, how many pilots participate out of the area like Parma and Notice and the rest of them, when we still talk as a city employee or a city councilman, we still talk about people as far as creating business, it's still got to be Caldwell instead of Treasure Valley. So that's why I asked the question. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but when people come in here, new businesses, that association has to be there. And the other thing is the safety factor is really important to me after having that little scare in a jet plane for Simplot. So that's what I had. Thank you.
Yeah,
I also
just 1 second. Sorry, Councilor McGee, I think had a question.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. And I'd rather that our airport director address the question about safety than our marketing director. And if that's a concern of ours that we want to deal with, let's have Rob come back up and address that safety issue, because I think that's a key thing. And Steve, with all due respect, Steve does a great job in marketing Caldwell, but I don't think he's an expert on airport safety. So maybe we should have Rob answer that.
Did you have a question for?
Well, I was wondering, when you were asking him the question, were you meaning to say that when they market it, are they calling it the actual Treasure Valley Executive Airport, or are they calling it the Caldwell Airport?
So for them to come to this area, they still have to call it Caldwell for them to do business with us.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Jenkins? Okay, I may have one. And I agree that the name needs to change. I think the industrial airport is not the correct name for that. So yeah, the executive I think is very important. So my biggest hang up is the length of it. Treasure Valley Executive Airport at Caldwell. So maybe just take 30 seconds or a minute just to kind of address. I'm sure you've heard that and had those concerns. So how does that get addressed? The length of it's just too long, too much to say. What's the thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor, Council. So my opinion of that is one of, I appreciate the breakdown that Mr. Oates provided as it relates to the name and why those elements were important in the decision-making process as it relates to ties into the name. My opinion of it is I'm not an expert in the airport industry, as Councilman McGee pointed out. But from a perspective of economic development and further promoting the airport, to me, it is not too challenging to convey those details to a prospect that's looking at the area, considering the market. Treasure Valley executive at Caldwell really signifies a number of things in my mind. It gives you an impression of the full region, the scope of opportunities that exist here, the attributes that are consistent with our region, but also has a direct tie to Caldwell. And for me, I have a lot of pride with the city of Caldwell. It's important for me to go out there and represent the city to the best of my ability. So I often talk about our story, our history, where we're at today, and where we're going. So it's important for me to have Caldwell affiliated with our name in some form or another. So I appreciate the fact that it does have a direct tie-in to that, and I also appreciate the regionalism approach that I indicated prior.
Okay, thank you very much. I know I see our Chamber of Commerce Director here, Mr. Summers. Did you come on this, for this item, or were you here for other enjoyment or entertainment?
I'm here to observe and listen.
So say, I don't know if you had any, I know if you had thoughts on this, I know I would appreciate hearing from, because I think if you want to not recognize that too, because the airport is an economic tool. It should be an economic tool. Yes, it's great, provides great services for the people to use it, but it needs to provide economic benefit to the state. And that's really, in my opinion, what the name boils down to. What is the best fit for the name to provide the best economic viability for the city of Caldwell?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jerry Summers, business location 1001 Plain Street, Economic Development, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. I did have an opportunity to sit in on one of the workshops with the airport. I was invited, I attended. The only comment I had when we were talking about the name change was that Caldwell would somehow be identified in the name, and I think they've accomplished that from my perspective. Listening, I've heard different perspectives from economic development, and I think they're all valid and they're sound, and we still have that identity as Caldwell.
Perfect, excellent. Any questions from any council members for Mr. Summers? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your input. Okay, so we don't have a sign-up sheet for this, and just to also to make sure everybody's aware, so there is no decision being made tonight. This is a workshop, so this is just to learn and inform and see if the council does want to proceed with change in the future. That would be a noticed hearing, then that could affect that. But tonight, there's no decisions being made. This is simply to gather information in regards to the name change on that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to ask, but was your intention to have Rob come up at the end, or can he answer that safety question right now? Either way is fine with me.
It may be better at the end, maybe just if we stopped at about 10 till, that way if there's other questions that come up too.
This is only to give enough time for the rest of the folks to speak.
Yeah.
So we've gone over already, so.
Yeah, so let's move on to those that want to speak. We'd ask you to, if you can limit your comments 3 minutes, and then that way we can try to get through as many as possible for that. So we'll start, kind of on this side of the room. Once one gets done, we'll kind of go through. If you want to speak, raise your hand, we'll have you come forward. We'll just have you state your name, for the record, so we can have it on there who you are. And again, please stay concise, stay on topic. If there's somebody who's already said something you agree with, you can just say that and then move on. So if you would just state your name for us, and then I'll allow you 3 minutes, to speak, and then any questions at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Bart Jones. I have a hangar and an airplane here at Caldwell. And last time the pilots were here, Councilman Stoddard offered us a workshop to come in instead of meeting with you individually, like all of our emails are planned. Is this the workshop that you had envisioned?
Yeah.
Because we have a lot more to talk about than just.
Yeah, and there's, as far as the timetable is concerned, if we need to extend this before our regular meeting starts, we can sure do that too, with the mayor's permission.
We'll have to look, we do have an agenda, so we'll look and see, and then if we need to maybe have another one, maybe come back at the end.
Yeah, I think we're doing this workshop for the name change, and then we would do another workshop for other issues.
Yeah, like I said, this is specific, just the name change, not any other issues that were brought up before.
Okay.
So,
So, like I said, my name is Bart Jones, and most of the pilots that were here last time, we all got together and created what is called the Caldwell Airport Association. That way we can all get together and we can all talk on the same page. That way you're not getting bombarded from all different angles. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the city and the FAA spend this tax dollars wisely, that the airport grows based on realistic needs and expectations. And there's an Accountable Airport Management Act in the interest of all parties through processes that utilize the valuable airport commission and community. We sent out a survey to the Caldwell Airport users. A link to the survey was emailed to all of you. I don't know if any of you looked at the survey, participated in the survey or whatever. But anyway, we've got several other speakers who will directly answer your questions. And I'd like to start with Stan, if you don't mind.
Yeah, perfect, come on forward. So, does it come forward? Yeah. So, yeah, can you state your name and address?
Hi, once again, Stan Seward, Caldwell, Idaho, 4003 Preston, in our lovely city of Caldwell. I honestly am a little bit confused because when we agreed to a workshop, we thought we were also discussing perhaps the reduced responsibilities and commitment of the airport commission. And so I guess just to clarify, there'll be time to talk about the role of the airport commission some other time.
That is correct. So this workshop is specific for that. I know there was a workshop in the other, I don't know if there'll be another workshop for that or we just come to a hearing to have testimony given for decision made, but tonight is simply just for that airport name change.
Okay, so, well, I'll just change my talk again. I changed it in the last 24 hours, but we're flexible. I wanted to lead off with, there was a horrible accident in Burley, Idaho on Wednesday, and we lost a lovely young lady, Chelsea Enfanger, 30 years old. She was a UPS contract pilot flying not the biggest single engine Cessna you can fly, the 208. So it's about a 10-passenger size airplane. The weather in Burley was snowfall, low visibility. She left Salt Lake, came up to Burley, and she approached the airport to land. She didn't have visibility. She did what's called the missed approach. So she said, I can't see the airport. And she's talking to air traffic control, and she goes around and she tries it again. And we lost this pilot on her second approach. She hit a 60-foot stack on a nearby plant, and it was an extremely sad situation. And I bring it up because there's an interesting history of Burley. That's my old airport where I based out of. I know the airport well. The airport had some problems. In 2015, the FAA basically said, you guys can't decide where you want to move your airport to. You know, you're not cooperating with each other. We're going to quit funding the studies, and we're also going to quit investing in your airport. And what it was is a failure of the community to look out for one another, the way I see it. And her dad, I know, I've read his comments already, and he said, you know, there was steam coming out of this potato processing plant. Chuck, you probably know that's our old plant there. I was there 10 years, and so there's obstacles, short runways, and the community couldn't figure out how to adjust their program and get the airport moved. And right now we've got a similar situation here.
So that was actually 3 minutes. We'll give you another one, if you could maybe come back to the name.
Yes,
And the issues with the name of the airport.
I will do that.
So, give you 1 minute to wrap that up.
Okay, and the way I'm bringing this back to our situation here in Caldwell is we've had an airport name change. And the reason you're seeing this here is we feel like the airport commission was not involved, pilots were not involved, it was not a community decision. And we had a communication channel at the airport that we had some people saying Treasure Valley, some people saying Caldwell. There was a little bit of a cultural war as to which side you were going to pick, and it was just not a good coordinated situation, and it's not just the name change, it's symptomatic of everything that's been happening in the last couple of years at Caldwell Airport. And, we have a nice survey to show you, but with the 3-minute thing, we don't have time to do that, so, I will take a seat.
I have a question.
Yes, yes.
What do you propose the name be?
I actually don't have a strong opinion, except that, it'd be a community, involved decision, and not something that, you know, somebody shows up at the airport commission and says, this is our new name.
So I think, with reading the emails and most of what I've heard, that industrial needs to come out of the name. That's sort of the thing. So is Caldwell Executive Airport more acceptable than Treasure Valley Executive Airport?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what I heard.
It was a survey question, and I don't know that we'll have time to see the survey, but, I'd be happy to email the survey to everybody, so you can look at it, all the questions yourselves. And I think the most popular was, Caldwell Municipal, but, Caldwell Executive, I think, got quite a bit of votes.
Right, because
The Treasure Valley got like 3 token votes.
right. I believe that you all need to be heard, and then I also believe that what they're saying with marketing and all that kind of stuff is important as well.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering where that compromise is. I guess before we go through all the testimony, is Caldwell Executive Airport a good compromise? Can we, talk about something like that so we're not just
I don't actually
repeating the
know,
same
but
thing?
I was happy to see Mr. Jenkins, and I also thought it would have been nice to see you at the airport commission, This is like recovery mode, and it's like, we gotta do this on the front end.
Yeah, so, Councilor Doty, I would just like to make a comment. I certainly haven't made up my mind yet, but there seems to be a lot of finger pointing about people weren't involved. And I know personally, though I wasn't here during the first decision about the name, I did also attend the meetings just as Jerry did. So it isn't a secret about the meeting occurring. It was open to the public and comments were taken from the public at that time. So I just want to make that clear that the city did its due diligence in posting the agenda about the
council. Are you speaking of the council meeting?
Correct.
Yes.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, very good. So who would like to go? Yes, please come forward. If you can limit it to 3, I know we got quite a few more that like to speak, so if you can limit it to 3 minutes. Okay, time is
Good
yours.
evening, Mayor Wagner, council members. I'm Vivian Firkin, 19335 Lower Pleasant Ridge Road in Caldwell, 83607. I'm on the Caldwell Airport Commission, as you have heard from past presentations, and I thought you had seen the survey, so I'm going to refer to it, I'm sorry. As you've seen from the survey results, airport users are unhappy with Treasure Valley Executive at Caldwell as the new name for Caldwell Airport. There was not an opportunity for airport users to be a part of the process. The Airport Commission was left out of the recommendation process. The airport management wanted Treasure Valley Executive at Caldwell Airport because that seems to be the direction they are promoting for the airport. Caldwell Airport pilots feel that Caldwell needs to be the predominant part of our airport name, and that Executive does not accurately portray the type of aircraft or usage based at Caldwell. Although I'm sure Caldwell Executive we would be amicable to that. The pilots feel that airport management has already made up its mind regarding Treasure Valley Executive at Caldwell. An information sheet titled, quote, "It's time to change Caldwell's airport name" showed up in the airport documents and resources in October of 21, prepared by airport management. It stated on page 1 that the leading candidate that encompassed our current service area and vision for marketing and future growth is, in bold letters, Treasure Valley Executive Airport at Caldwell. On page 3 of the same document, it stated that the, quote, "The following are some potential name changes that may be more reflective of the current and future type of airports that Caldwell is becoming." And it listed the names. I won't go through them. But Treasure Valley Executive Airport was highlighted, even though there were other options. Due to the lack of involvement by airport management of the Airport Commission, we now have this turmoil. If the commission had been involved, this should have been the sequence of events. Airport management came forth with why the name change and possible names. discussion, of names by the commission and why one better than another, possibly other suggestions. A workshop with the airport users to talk about new name and potential names. An input from a workshop discussed by the commission, an appropriate name agreed upon, and a recommendation by the commission to the city council for approval. The name change was first brought up at a commission meeting in October of '21. The minutes for that meeting show airport management explained there was a white page document, the one I referred to before, on this website with the reasons why we need the name change. There was to be a workshop for the pilots on November 17, '21. This did not happen. There was no commission meeting in November. In December of '21, Brent brought up the name change. I opposed it at that meeting. No more was discussed. There was no meeting in January. And at the February 22 meeting, the airport management explained the name change had gone through and would be recognized by March 24th of '22. And I'm sorry, I'm going to refer to the survey again. As you can see by the survey, the airport commission is well regarded by pilots. The other information, I have just a few more minutes.
Yep, go right ahead, jump it up.
Is
No,
that-
yeah, you're good to go.
Okay.
Wrap up.
The other important information this survey shows is that pilots would like a more effective commission. At the February 22 Airport Commission meeting, Brent Orton announced that the City Council was considering a quarterly meeting rather than a monthly meeting. He also talked of eliminating audience participation. We are comprised of valuable airport and flying resources to the City Council. We are all pilots. Having a forum for the airport user to discuss concerns about the airport is an important part of ensuring that we maintain a safe airport. We exist to recommend and make suggestions to the council. Thank you.
Okay, hold on, I know we have a couple questions, Councilor Doty.
We don't have any data as to who the survey was sent to, so where did the email addresses come from? I certainly didn't see it. And I'm wondering if everyone that has a lease at the Caldwell Airport was sent the survey.
Thank you. For now, thank you,
Yeah.
Stan again. We basically queried the county to get a record of property owners in the area of the airport. So we got property owners, sent them a mailer with a URL to get to the survey. And then we also used Facebook and email lists and posters to try to get to our target Caldwell user group. And it's a little different of the survey because we don't let people take it anonymously. We wanted quality results, so we asked people to verify their Caldwell association, either with a hangar number, airman certificate number, if they were a business owner at the airport, put that on the survey.
Yeah.
So just one follow-up then, so you said it went to Canyon County residents. Did it go to everyone that leases a hangar at the airport as well, or just those that live in Canyon County?
Okay, what's that? Okay, so we pulled up, the property record for where the tax bill gets sent for the hangars, and that's the address we sent those to. So we did not send it to everybody in Canyon County. We were trying to get, people that were familiar with the airport and involved in the airport in some fashion. Either flew out of there as a pilot, there are people, I think, that own hangars, and they're investors, and they rent them out properly for aviation use. So we wanted to capture those folks. Certainly, people that, maybe come to Caldwell a lot for fuel, or maybe come to the restaurant to eat, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, very good. So who would like to come? So let's do right here and then in the back. Okay. So you can, again, just limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
My name is Doug Campbell. I live at 2293 Ridgeview Way, Boise. I own 2 hangars at the airport and 3 airplanes based at the airport. One's a commercial hangar and one is a personal hangar. So I had planned to discuss a little bit about how we got into this situation, issues with the airport commission, not really talk about that. But Rob brought up a number of, the airport manager brought up a number of points which used as proof of, or evidence of why the name should be changed. What I did not see, and I read the papers, and I tried to verify some of the data, and I find that no one, to my knowledge, actually verified the data. For example, if you go to the FAA's database, you'll see that the airport manager reported 2,000 Part 135 operations a year going out of the airport. Now, I tried to verify this with FAA, and they go, well, we just take whatever numbers typed in, we take that. And I did call the FAA to verify that that's true. I also checked with the FAA to see, well, 135 is air taxi. It's just like you would call a taxi. It has to move a person from one place to another. It's not a sightseeing flight, it's not a photography flight, it's got to be air taxi. We only have one Part 135 operation on the field, and that's Silver. I asked a whole bunch of people at the airport, well, where did 2,000 flights come from? And nobody could figure that out. So an airport commission, a good airport commission, would have looked at all of the reasons, and they would have questioned some of this so that when the data came out, it was vetted, and you were getting good data to make your decision. The executive, the use of the term executive, my biggest, and I think a lot of it is, it's very exclusive. It actually, very few of us on the airport are executives. I have worked for all the three major defense contractors, Lockheed, Northrop, and Boeing, and I feel uncomfortable using the term executive. Now, I guess most of us don't have a big problem with executive, but it does make, if you just walk around the airport and you ask people, that's what they're upset about. They're going, well, does this mean they expect us to wear a tie when we come in here? That type of thing. As for Treasure Valley, I have flown all over the country. I represented the state of Idaho for the 100th anniversary of Kitty Hawk. I flew my 206 back there, delivered a proclamation from the governor, brought the state flag, that's on display now at the museum. I've flown all over the country, coast to coast, beach to beach, literally. And there's only one place I can recall where the name of the airport was not the town, except in those cases where there were multiple airports, Sacramento Executive, you know, if you have a town with more than one airport, yes, they give them different names. But other than that, everybody names it by the town. So, the only other comment I would make is sort of along the lines of vetting the data. In part of the reason, now I agree industrial brings up the image of Rust Belt. So, I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But in the report, it stated that the fact that there is industry, that you've developed the land around the airport, implies that the name industrial created that, as if, reminds me of Oscar Wilde, the importance of being earnest, you know. Just because you name it doesn't really make it true. So I would say no evidence was presented that those places are there because of the airport, except for the zoning. And that is an important part, but that's just because you have an airport. And I agree, the zoning around the airport does protect it, and that does create a certain type of economic development. But it's not because planes are landing. It's because of the way that you need to zone near an airport.
Very good. Any questions, the council? Okay, thank you very much. I know we had in the back. Yes, please come forward. Sorry, the gentleman was very, very back. So we'll give him 3 minutes and then. Okay, please state your name for the record, and if you could leave it to 3 minutes so we can make sure that gentleman gets a chance as well.
My name is Dave Erlbach, and business at 1711 Slipstream, Caldwell, Idaho. And I think I've been listening to a few testimonies, but I think you ought to listen to the business side of some owners that have businesses close to the airport and some of the clientele that we're trying to get in. So we employ about 300 people, all right, and I have a friend that owns Amfac right across from the airport that employs a couple hundred. And we bring in clientele like Amazon, Microsoft, Caterpillar, Tyson, Siemens, and those clients come in to our businesses, usually with planes, okay? And we're really impressed with the direction the airport commission has taken and Rob has directed to get the airport to be more of an executive type, attitude. Us business guys have spent millions of dollars to promote our businesses, okay? And I appreciate the pilot standpoint, but I hope they can appreciate our standpoint from the amount of investment we put in the city of Caldwell, okay, to get our businesses to grow. And we need these type of clientele into our companies, all right, to grow the business and keep, jobs that we have. So we absolutely love the Treasure Valley Executives, name for the airport, all right, and we support it. And we would like to see if there's a way that we could, come together between the pilots and the community as far as business people. I pay about $180,000 in taxes to Canyon County, and I'm assuming that I have a voice, I suppose, other than just a pilot's voice as far as what takes place at the airport. So the few meetings that I've been to, I've been very impressed with the direction that the airport is trying to take. So that's my comment.
Excellent. Any questions? So maybe I'll just throw one out there real quick. So you mentioned the Treasure Valley Executive Airport over whatever, even the Caldwell Executive Airport, now that was mentioned before. So you do see economic benefit on that in, not only in Caldwell, but out, I guess, in your area, but throughout Caldwell?
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Yes, please come forward. And you will, unfortunately, probably be our last one, and then we'll give Mr. Oates come forward to talk about the safety issue. So if you could just please say your name and then 3 minutes.
It's Robert Mickle, I live at 14411 West Kenneth Drive in Boise, Idaho. I've been flying out of this airport for a number of years with Bob Morrell. Bob has a hangar and he has a beautiful 182, and he's been flying me back and forth between Caldwell and Boise, many flights. And so, he's a former FedEx pilot, and so I, with tongue in cheek, say, yeah, I have Bob Morrell as my private pilot. This is an amazing airport, but here's why it's the wrong name. I'm going to give you an example from what I learned in the ski industry, why this would be a bad name. Number one, I've lived in the Treasure Valley most of my life, and you know what? A lot of people don't know this is the Treasure Valley. They live in Boise, or they identify with the city they live in, Eagle, Nampa, Caldwell. We identify with the cities that we live in, because we're community people. But let me tell you what happened to Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. Jackson Hole Mountain Resort now is the #1 ski resort, voted probably 4 of the last 6 years as the #1 ski resort in North America. For many, many years, Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, when it was first established, they called themselves, for the first 25 years of their existence, Teton Village Ski Resort. Well, they did a survey, a big survey, spent a lot of money, and they realized that there were more people that recognized the name Jackson Hole than recognized the name Tetons. And so they had a big marketing convention and spent 3 days, and at the end of those 3 days, they determined, we're gonna become Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, and they changed their name from Teton Village to Jackson Hole Mountain Resort, because there were more people in the whole world that already knew the name Jackson Hole from movies that have been made there for years. Anyway, here's the problem with Treasure Valley. Nobody knows Treasure Valley. We know Boise, we know Caldwell, we know Nampa. Why are we trying to put Treasure Valley on the map? Do we have anything out on the freeway on either end of the Treasure Valley that says, welcome to the Treasure Valley, like Las Vegas has big signs, welcome to Las Vegas? Well, Las Vegas has been trademarked for the last 50 years. So is Jackson Hole, so is Boise, so is Caldwell. Treasure Valley is a nothing name. It isn't a good name. Nobody knows. No, if you were to go 48 states, I'll bet you there wouldn't be 1 in 100 people that would know where the Treasure Valley is. Would they know where Boise, Idaho is? Of course. Would they know about the Caldwell Night Rodeo that's been on the map, and put Caldwell on the map for many, many years? Absolutely. So, you need to go back and, we say, from, sometimes pilots say we need to get this, look at this thing 40,000 feet, rethink it.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Or I get too far down the aisle? Okay. So, Mr. Oates, if you wouldn't mind coming up, and specifically the safety, do you have a?
Yeah, I think the discussion's been great tonight, and I appreciate both sides. What I'm think is really important that we end this with is, I wanna make sure there's no doubt about the safety issue. We have heard reference of what happened in Burley. We heard reference of some confusion in Nebraska, but I'm guessing that in the determination on the name that was presented to the city council, and that you also had the advisors who came in and talked about that name change, Rob, is there any safety issue or concern about the name change that is currently taking place?
You heard a couple sessions ago, comments made about the use of the name Treasure Valley on the radio. But as I mentioned earlier, that has been largely resolved. So almost all the radio traffic is referring to Caldwell Airport. And because of the radio frequency change, all the traffic on that frequency is for Caldwell. So anyone who does refer to Treasure Valley, everyone who's involved in listening knows what's at stake. So I would have to answer no, there's no safety-related question related to the name.
Any questions from any council members for Mr. Oates?
Mayor, again, I'll just reiterate what I said before relative to safety. I did run into that problem when I was flying with Simplot, and as the gentleman before you said, somebody said, well, come to the Treasure Valley and open up a processing plant. Nobody out of state would know where the hell we're at, and, again, I just think that, again, the name is too long, and I'm sure we'll discuss that further. You and I had about a 3-hour meeting and tour last week, and
Yes, sir.
discussed those issues, and
We had a spirited discussion, and I appreciate your perspective.
Yeah.
I stand by all my comments. I'm not at all sure what Burley is involved with our situation tonight. I'm also not sure about your landing at the wrong airport. I mean, that's certainly an issue, but it's not terribly common.
Burley has a lot of seagull issues too.
Yeah. Burley has other issues too. Thank you.
I have a,
Yes, one last.
well, just going back to kind of the safety thing, like, I have a 911 dispatcher, background.
Okay.
And if somebody had come in and said, hey, you can't call it this anymore, now you need to call it this, it would be very difficult as far as radio and safety to get used to that and changing names and everybody getting on board with that and whatever. But my question, I guess, now is, I think we're all aware that this is part of a bigger problem, and so there's more going on than just this name change. So how do you come together with the pilot or anybody else that's interested in the airport and come up with a suggestion for the name change, as opposed to us coming up with one, or you coming up with one, or them coming up with one? Like, how do we propose doing this moving forward?
Well, I think, and I'll jump in, Rob, if you want, that really is gonna be, see how this go forward, really. I mean, Rob will have input on, that stuff and others, but it really is gonna be, from, our perspective as the city leaders, where do we go from here on that regard? And if it does end up at a public hearing, to just debate it some more, then there'll be notifications sent out. That'll be opportunity for anybody and everybody that wants to speak at that meeting would have the opportunity to come and to testify, basically, for or against, in that regard. So that really, again, take no offense to Mr. Oates, but that really is out of his realm and more, of the city leaders' realm of where that goes from here, so.
And so somebody, I think we talked with Vivian, is that right? Last time, that she was gonna keep an eye on that, so that if the notification went out, there wouldn't be the confusion, again, of having the, hearing and not knowing, yes.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that. We did go over a little bit, but we are gonna take a 5-minute break. We apologize for those that are here for the 7 o'clock meeting, but just to allow those to transition out. City Council to take a break, and we'll be back. Doesn't hammer tonight, so welcome everyone this evening. We apologize for our late start. We had a workshop, trying to find my people here. So a workshop to discuss the naming of the Caldwell, almost called the Caldwell, the Treasure Valley Executive Airport at Caldwell. So sometimes things just, so anyway, so we had a great discussion. We appreciated all the people that came out for that. That'll be an ongoing, continuing discussion, I'm sure. So we apologize I did go a little late, but we will go ahead and get started. We appreciate everyone being here, and we will begin the city council meeting with an invocation offered by Reverend Bob Larson. Are you here? Very good. And then following that, we will have pledge of allegiance. So please stand for the prayer, remain standing for the pledge.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for our great city and we thank you for the city council and our mayor and all of the civil servants. We pray for your blessing on them. Pray that you give them wisdom to make great decisions for our community. We just thank you for the blessing that our community is. We pray you bless this meeting tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, Mr. Larson. Does this young man belong to you by chance?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you for being here. Okay, Madam Clerk, if you please do a roll call.
Williams,
Here.
Jody,
Here.
Dottie,
Here.
Register,
Here.
McGee.
Very good. So let the record reflect that we have 5 council people present. Mr. Allgood is not with us tonight. He's not feeling well this evening, so we would excuse him for that. Are there any conflicts of interest declaration from any of the council for any items on the agenda tonight? Okay, let the record reflect that there are none. Before we do get to our special presentations, we do want to recognize Mrs. Adams, one of the greatest teachers in Caldwell history. Caldwell High is here with her students, and I know they are confirming that behind them. So Mrs. Adams, if you don't mind, I'm guessing this is some of your history students that are here with you tonight?
American government.
American government. Excellent, very good. So would they mind standing and just introducing themselves and tell us your name and what, they're all Caldwell High, obviously, go Cougs. So if you could tell us your name and what grade you are in school.
I'm Lily Gale, and I'm in 12th grade.
Very good, and then you'll just go down the line.
My name is Promise Gonzalez, and I'm also in 12th grade.
Hello, my name is Fernando Alonso, and also in 12th grade.
My name is Julia Rodriguez, I'm in 12th grade. Hello, my name is Mary Villalobos. I'm also high and I'm a senior there. My name is Giselle Gonzalez.
And what grade are you in?
12th grade.
Just good, also, a bunch of seniors, very good, excellent. And the numbers will get bigger, I'm sure, as the year goes on, and they run out of time to get down here. So kudos, they get bonus points for coming to an early session, or an early hearing, so very good. Excellent, well, thank you, it's great to have you here, and invite your classmates to come, invite them to join Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. Our numbers are growing there, we want to continue to do that. So thank you so much for being a part of your community, and thank you, Mrs. Adams, for making sure that they're a part of their community, whether they want to or not. So sometimes it's good to force coercion. So we do have some special presentations this evening. So first off is the proclamation, and this is for Fair Housing Month. I'm not sure if there's anybody here. Very good. You want to come forward and say anything before we read this? If you can state your name and let everybody know what you do for the city.
My name is Carrie Foster, and I'm the Community Development Block Grant Specialist for the city of Caldwell.
Okay, excellent. So Carrie keeps us in line with our CDBG funding and does a great job there at City Hall. So we appreciate everything that she does on that. Do you have any comments before I read this, or?
I just have a little blurb.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to say, Mayor and council members, thank you for recognizing April as Fair Housing Month and for your proclamation during this meeting. Idaho Entitlement Community, Idaho Fair Housing Council, and the Idaho Housing Forum have worked together to create daily social media posts for April, each week focusing on different fair housing information. We have also partnered in the creation of commercial for radio broadcasts, which provide information about fair housing requirements and where to go for more information. I want to thank you again for the proclamation and acknowledgement of April as Fair Housing Month.
Thank you very much. So I will read this proclamation. So it states, whereas April 20th, 2022 marks the 54th anniversary of the passage of Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, commonly known as the Federal Fair Housing Act, and whereas the Idaho Human Rights Commission Act has prohibited discrimination in housing since 1969, and whereas equal opportunity for all, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, or national origin, is a fundamental goal of our nation, state, and city of Caldwell, and whereas equal access to housing is an important component of this goal, as fundamental as the right to equal education and employment, and whereas housing is a critical component of family and community health and stability, and whereas housing choice impacts our children's access to education, our ability to seek and retain employment options, the cultural benefits we enjoy, the extent of our exposure to crime and drugs, and the quality of health care we receive in emergencies. And whereas the laws of this nation and our state seek to ensure such quality of choice for all transactions involving housing. And whereas ongoing education, outreach, and monitoring are key to raising awareness of fair housing principles, practices, rights, and responsibilities. And whereas only through continued cooperation, commitment, and support of all Idahoans can barriers to fair housing be removed. Now therefore, I, Jerem Wagoner, Mayor of the City of Caldwell, do hereby proclaim April 2022 to be Fair Housing Month in the City of Caldwell, State of Idaho. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand on this 18th day of April 2022. So very good. So we appreciate you being here tonight. We appreciate this proclamation, and it is so true. Fair housing is so important. People deserve and should have a place to reside, whatever that may be. And we need to ensure that we provide that for them and for the citizens of Caldwell. So thank you for bringing this forward to us tonight. Okay, so that will now move us on to annual update reports. We do have two of those. We would ask those coming forward to please keep your remarks between 5 and 8 minutes. Would be fantastic. And we will have first here from Destination Caldwell. I see two of you coming forward. So Sabrina, I guess you need to go first, and is Regan gonna finish it off, or is she just there for moral support? Very good.
She's actually my backup because I got laryngitis last week.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure all weekend she was like, Cash point.
So we short and sweet then.
It might be, yeah, it'll,
We're okay with
yeah.
that.
There's like, yeah.
Us employees were thanking God.
Yeah.
And my husband in the back, who appreciated that, because I told John earlier, he does read my sign language, so.
Very good.
Do you want me to change it or? Yeah. I'm gonna sit just on my own presentation here. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Sabrina Minshaw, I'm the CEO of Destination Caldwell. We usually do this presentation in June, so we were super pleased that we were able to now come twice for you. So we'll come now and talk about right before we get into our busy event season, and then again in October before we go into winter season. So I'm gonna give kind of a high-level overview since we only have about 8 minutes. Then if you have questions, we can follow up with you individually. I also know we have a workshop scheduled on the BID coming up, so we're happy to talk more about how we can provide some information for that. So first of all, I always like to start with the mission at Destination Caldwell is to create high-impact projects. It's really about leveraging agricultural history, which is part of the brand, which on your screen looks like it's cut off, and rich, vibrant spirit to build a prosperous future for Caldwell. So the reason that's important, doesn't count as part of my 8 minutes. There we go.
Everything counts.
All right.
5 minutes.
All right, so, always working on that part. So I always like to, with our staff, Corey will testify here, that we always try to start with the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? Because if we're really clear about our why, then the what comes much more naturally and we can work as partners. So the why really here was done back in 2015 and 16, and some of you were part of that group. Business owners, chambers, elected officials, people came together and said, okay, what are the assets of Caldwell, and what do we need to do together to leverage those for downtown? And this was really why. We wanted to put Caldwell on the map. We wanted to close the leakage of our money to other communities. Differentiation was a big part. We didn't want to just be every other downtown or every other community, because that's how downtowns thrive, is you have something that's different about you. And then, of course, to make downtown vibrant, active, gathering place for families. Will not work. Banner. All right, so organizations are about people. We have some of them here. Corey Turner is our facilities manager. He's behind me making faces, I can tell. And we have some of our board members here. So Regan Rossi, Sean Maven, and Jeff Hunsicker are all here as well. Just to make sure that you're aware that a lot of these folks spend a lot of time and effort. Community members, business leaders, property owners downtown, to really help lead downtown and keep our focus there, as well as making things really vibrant. We also, of course, have Mayor Wagner is our ex officio, as well as Mr. Summers with our chamber. So, some people ask me, like, is there a plan? And I made this small because I'm going to drag you back at the end to the website. This entire plan, which is about 230 pages, is all on the website. It's great reading, but there's one page that we draw to, because there's 63 actions that this plan talked about over a 5 to 6 year period. When we came in, we worked with our board and our staff, and we reordered them and said, this was as of about 10 months ago. What had we started, what was completed, what did we still need to work on? And we'll draw to your attention that this isn't just Destination Caldwell, this is all of us. A lot of these roles are the city, a lot of these roles are chamber, property owners, and Destination Caldwell. But it was really, here's all the things that you have to do. And I'm gonna keep reminding you, we're 4 years into this, so we're so much further than we expected to be. Nice. So we've highlighted 8 of them, because even with 63, these were really kind of the themes around them. And you can see the ones that are a little more bolded. Develop the amazing plaza with programmed activities, not just a space, but a programmed space. Reimagining downtown with a strategic business mix. The city has a huge part in that. Your economic development team especially are consistently recruiting businesses, and we have great communication back and forth when people are interested. We're currently right now working on a wayfinding and directional signage system for parking and for public spaces. Some of you came to our workshop a couple weeks ago in our walkabout. We expect that to be done by the first part of June. And then part of that plan will also include things like the visitor kiosk, and eventually how do we have more of a year-round market. You can see the rest of those tasks are really how those things all kind of roll up into work. Some of those are business improvement district tasks, some of those are actually plaza tasks, and some are things we work with the city. So these are gonna kind of flip through quick. I'm just gonna show you a few before and after pictures. And the reason I show these is we sometimes forget that this was only about 5 years ago. So I did a presentation at the Realtors Association just a couple of weeks ago, and I asked everybody, where were you 5 years ago? And they thought about it, they said, well, where was downtown 5 years ago? It has not been that long. These are amazing progress. We still have a long way to go and lots of things to do, but sometimes we forget that because I am not the most patient person. Meridians agrees. Okay, next. So, key areas, agriculture, downtown evolution, business support. I'm gonna touch just briefly on each of those, and then if you want more information, we can do that. So a lot of times people know that we run the plaza, but they don't know the other parts that are part of the bylaws and part of the original discussion in those plans. First is, Destination Caldwell acts as for tourism arm. So we really talk a lot about agricultural initiatives, our viticulture and our agriculture, because that was the asset this community had around it. So we do a lot of education, we also do an ag venture brochure, which I'll leave for you, and then we're also contracted with the Sunnyslope Wine Trail that we do their marketing, because so much of our branding is together. So they're a separate organization, but we do a lot of that. And part of this message is to get people to and from downtown, to and from our ag venture areas, and then back to downtown, and eventually to stay in Caldwell. So with the plaza, these are things you're more familiar with. I'll leave some of these scrap cards as well. Even during COVID, this is our 4th season of actually having the plaza open. 2 of those seasons were COVID. Even during those times last year, we had over 250 activities and events. It also talks about marketing Caldwell experiences all throughout the Treasure Valley, and we do a lot of work with other nonprofits as well. So here's the numbers from last year: 267 events and activities, 46,000 ice skaters, which is up from 2020, 210 estimated visitors to the plaza events. These are not just coming to hang out at the plaza or the business space that's used at the plaza, that's actually event ones. And then again, once again, this year we have the best event center by the people of Idaho, which we're kind of proud of. So you have this on your flyer as well. I'm not going to go through all of them, but what we like about this is it shows you the growth year over year for 4 years. And especially if you look at the social media growth, you can really see the COVID years where we had to reach out through social media because a lot of that person-to-person marketing wasn't happening. But even with that, still look at the number of visitors that have increased and the number of ice skaters. So that is really driving and encouraging even more of that business where people are coming to the plaza, but they're seeing what else is downtown and they're able to come back. So, touching a bit more on the downtown overall, remember we talked about agritourism, we talked about the plaza itself, and then the broader downtown. This goes back to the why. We do these things so we are relentlessly focused on how successful downtown is. So those things also include business information, referrals for rentals, helping businesses understand what their processes are, marketing downtown, and then connecting our downtown restaurants to local sources, which has been really successful. Talked a bit about that our parking and signage plan will be done in June. And we've also been working with Christian Terrell in the city on some placemaking options. We've also got some stats here down at the bottom I won't read to you, but those are about the downtown e-gift card. Usually those really peak up right before the holiday season. So, again, marketing, this has been something that I don't think that we've shared as much of. So for those of you that are more familiar with social media numbers, these are huge. We really have 2 main platforms and then some smaller platforms. The big platform is Destination Caldwell, which is really about more of all of downtown, as well as tourism, and then Indian Creek Plaza, which is really focused on events. We also have platforms related to the farmers market, and Sunny Slope. Again, I'm not gonna read all of these, but I just feel like you should be able to get some exposure that over the last year, the marketing, now that we're into that third year and those other activities, is starting to really ramp up and related to how the plaza connects to downtown and how it connects to tourism. So a couple that we're really proud of, and I'll leave these for you too, is the Scout Guide. So this is one that I know you guys were invited recently, to the kickoff, but we were able to work with the Scout Guide for a centerfold. It's very family-friendly centerfold. It's all about downtown Caldwell. So we were able to purchase things for about Caldwell as itself, downtown, and the messaging, and then businesses could opt in for a smaller advertising portion that they wouldn't have been able to afford without. So this is all throughout hotels, coffee shops, and then it's also direct mail all throughout the Treasure Valley to certain income categories. So it's a really cool kind of first exposure. And then the only other one I would mention is we also are continuing kind of our foray into radio and television. We're starting a Have You Seen Caldwell Lately program. We're getting some good traction on that and just highlighting different businesses and what else is happening in Caldwell to really redo that narrative of what is in downtown. So I'm going to touch on this, but this is really probably a BID workshop conversation. Going into City's fiscal year 2023, which is in October, the process is that by June of every year, we submit through our board what the budget's going to be for the business improvement districts, because then it gets wrapped in and published as part of the city budget. So one of the things our board is talking about is now that we're into that fourth year, we're going to really look and make sure that we can have programmatic budgets for the business improvement district that is very clearly understood what those activities are. Rather than just saying it helps with salaries or helps with XYZ, it'll be much more clear, and it's things that it's already been using for. But instead of things both being in the same pockets per se, we'll be able to say, here's the downtown marketing efforts and the people that are associated with that. Here's a green team that we're gonna stand up like some other downtowns have. You know, here's some project level things like parking and wayfinding signage. So we'll have more conversation about this, but these are things that we've been hearing and kind of bouncing off business owners and property owners is how can we make that communication a little more clearly so they understand what's happening with those BID funds. So this is in your packet. This is the same chart that I gave you last year in June for 2021. For those of you that were elected here last fall, and I'll send this to you, Mr. Williams, I sent you this information in November for what was in 2021. These are the updated 2022 budget numbers. Again, these are budgets, so they have some pretty good estimations in terms of expectations of community fundraising, ongoing business activities, information from Plaza. As you can see, in the past, in this current year, the business improvement district funding went into a portion of all these activities. They weren't done as programmatic budgets per se. And so that'll be a way that'll be a little more clear to be able to understand which funds fund which kind of activities, the different kind of budgeting. And you can also see there were some approved projects out of the bottom. For example, the $55,000 wayfinding. It could have been just as easily funded through Business Improvement District. The Destination Caldwell overall just funded it. Okay, a couple challenges, and I'll open up for questions. These are challenges we're all aware of. We're having conversations with you. It really is about partnerships. We have to continue to have the resources to keep Plaza and downtown premier, which means ongoing fundraising. Our team, and you can probably see in the pictures there, we've started not only power washing our areas in the Plaza that we have management agreement for, but also other parts in downtown. Kind of like the reverse of the broken window theory. The more we find that people really keep up the area and that we're showing pride, then more people start showing pride. The more we put out flowers, the more we're cleaning up and getting trash, more property owners are doing that. So it still takes time and people. And then the balance of Plaza use. I think we've really gotten to a good place with this, but we always have to balance, when is it public open space, when is it, you know, sprinkler time, when is it concerts, when is it private events, when is it business access. It serves a lot of things for a lot of people, and so we always have to balance that and listen to people. Coordination of the city on public spaces, not only parking, which again, I know you have a big workshop on, but there's a lot of great smaller public space areas that we need to activate to do what I know many of you campaigned on. Spread out the energy from what's on the plaza to downtown. If you were here last Saturday when the rain stopped, the spring extravaganza, we did the Easter egg hunt in front of the theater. We had the stage of the Easter Bunny further down Plaza Extension. So we're really trying to spread out that energy. And what's cool is that gets people walking and seeing more businesses. But it does take more effort because you have a bigger space. And then just business contact information. For the new folks, our business improvement district is actually a misnomer. It's a property improvement district. So it's by the property owners. So we have a good list of property owners, and we mail things to property owners, and you have a couple of those mailings, but we've never had a great handle on businesses, partly because they're still ramping up, and they come and go. We had some update done during COVID, but now we need to work together to have a good distribution for that. So we started an opt-in text, that'll help, but we can't really do much of a business directory if we don't get business info. So we're gonna all have to work together on that. Okay, this is just my pretty picture of people that help us. And then the last one is really just thanking you. Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk to you. This is the fastest I've ever been able to give this. But I'm happy to talk to any of you individually. Our board members are happy to do that too, and then we look forward to having an ongoing presentation and conversation about the Business Improvement District, since that's one of the key tools that was put in place a few years ago to help do this work.
Excellent.
Questions?
Very good. Any questions from any counselors for Sabrina? Counselor Doty?
That's why you gotta have your mic down already.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanna say, I think Corey does an amazing job for you as well as your staff.
How much did he pay you?
He didn't, but he seems to be the face that a lot of people see out there. He and your staff do an amazing job there.
Thank you.
And I was out,
Appreciate it.
yeah, and I was out and did see that they're already working on the seal replacement. I'm not sure that's the official word for it, but it looks like they're working hard on that, so.
Ongoing, we pulled the barricades out, went with it, did a kind of interim plan, and then finishing it. They were still working on it when I left.
Counselor McGee?
That slide really quick. And, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just wanted to point out something. To me, this is so great, and in almost every category, we're seeing more and more. And again, as you pointed out, Sabrina, even after 2 COVID years, right? But I almost want you to have a slide there that says 2017, 2016, 2015.
You just want to see the zeros?
Because the numbers were zero.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Okay, and and these things don't happen by accident. And I'm just so proud of you and your predecessor and the board members who are here, Sean and Jeff and Regan. I mean, this just doesn't happen through thin air and magically appear. It's lots of hard work, it's lots of meetings, it's lots of work with the city employees, Mr. Wagner, when you were a city employee, and Brent. That's how all of this gets done, and it is such a great asset. And the fact now that it's recognized as the state of Idaho's favorite place to go, or whatever that you referenced it.
I like yours better.
Thank you. Yeah, favorite, the state of Idaho's very favorite place. That's what we should call it. I mean, in 5 years, and I think it just, Mr. Mayor, sometimes we don't even celebrate it enough, the transformation and the changes that has taken place and what that has done for our community. So, for all the people that have worked hard on that, and you, Sabrina, we're very grateful.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Counselor Sutter.
Yeah, I did what, Mr. Doty says, especially with Corey back there, and he's got a lot on his shoulders, I know. With the Saratoga property disappearing now, I would think that, parking is gonna be a major issue for us downtown, and I don't know if we have any meetings set up on that, but, if you do, I'd sure like to be involved with some of that, because it's gonna be a really important part for us.
Yeah, I would say we agree. I'm gonna go back a little bit on John's thing. If you look back in 2017 with all the zeros, I don't think anybody imagined we would have a parking problem. Everybody thought that would be success, right?
Yeah.
So with success comes challenges. I would kind of hand that back to you guys in the sense that it really is something that, we're happy to be a part of, but the city has a lot of investments, a lot of ideas. I do know you guys have a workshop scheduled to talk about it, so whatever way we can, or whatever way we can help get feedback from the businesses of what they're experiencing. One of the handouts I did give you is we've worked with Bianca and your staff to do just an existing parking map. It's not, it's not gonna be the final answer, but it's the step one of being able to communicate where parking is. We've been putting this out on our social media, getting it to businesses to put out. Step two is this wayfinding parking signage, which means either we put it there, we need to sign it, how to get there, and how to feel more comfortable being a couple blocks away and walking in. What does that feel and look like? So that's an investment. And then really step three is all the things that Mayor and his team is working on of how do we have more parking, where do you put it, how do you not take all your valuable land for development, do you do meters, all those questions are things that we're happy to participate in conversation.
And we do that, that's scheduled in June, and what you just said, we're gonna be talking about, metering, parking garage, I mean, everything's out there on the table, we're gonna have a really good discussion, as we got that plan in June to have that workshop for that.
Yeah.
Yes, Counselor Doty.
Just one final comment, I was gonna save it for the end, but I did go to the wayfinding meeting, and I'm very excited about that. To let people know where to go to find these, I guess what some would say obscure parking areas. So I am a full supporter of the signage for that.
Yeah, that's been a great investment, it's $55,000 to get a good blueprint that the board invested, so. And then just thank you, I mean, yes, thank you to Corey as well. I don't like when he sits behind me, it makes me nervous.
I don't know if his head's gonna fit through the door when he tries to leave tonight.
Anyway, yeah, we,
next week.
yeah, we really do have an amazing team, and you see a lot of them out there, so any of them can tell you the story. But I also do wanna thank all of you guys, our board, for the investment, and city staff. I mean, Brent, Rob, and Steven, God bless them, they're on my speed phone and cell phone, so we've been down like 7 o'clock at night, how do I do that? So, it is a partnership, but we don't wanna forget that. It's really not one organization or the other, and we need to keep talking about it, so.
Excellent, thank you
All right,
so much.
thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
I'll be inspired.
Okay. And our final special presentation is an annual update report from Community Health Coalition. Lisa, I saw you back there, figured that's why you were here. So, very good. If you'd come forward and just state your name for the council, know who you are, and the time is yours.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Lindsay McConnell-Boone. I am a program manager at University of Idaho Extension, and I co-facilitate the Caldwell Health Coalition with Daniel Adams from Southwest District Health, who's here with me tonight as well. So I appreciate your time. Just a little history for the Health Coalition. We established this in 2018. That was part of the Well-Connected Communities National Health Initiative. That's a grant-funded program that our extension team has been working on and continues to participate in. Started that in 2017. And so we've established local health coalitions in Owyhee County and Franklin County and eastern Idaho as well. But over the last several years here in Caldwell, we've been building membership and really trying to define our role within the community. We are seeking to improve the wellness of Caldwell by addressing the wide range of factors that impact our residents' overall health. So the group is open to everyone, youth particularly, any of the seniors who want to hop on to one of our Health Coalition meetings, you're more than welcome to. So youth, adults, organizations, city, county officials, we want to have a diverse and representative set of voices at the table to be most effective. We've already got multiple city staff on the coalition. Jerome Mapp has been one of our integral coalition members since day one, and Bianca Stevenson also, when she took over for Chelsea. Chelsea was highly involved, and now Bianca's a great asset for us as well. So we have members from St. Luke's, St. Al's, Terry Riley, Idaho Food Bank, Caldwell Chamber of Commerce, Spanish Chamber of Commerce, Idaho Public Television, school districts, mental health agencies, you name it. We try to bring in everybody that we can. But I'd like to share with you just about 2 specific projects that we've done over the past year that are worth highlighting for sure. Last year, the coalition decided to review the walkability report that Vitruvian did for the city back in 2019. And at that point, no action had really been considered. So in recognition that the built environment and walkability is most definitely a social determinant of health, our group decided to just take a look at that and see what's something that we can do within our capacity from some of the concerns that were raised there. And so we had volunteers go to Van Buren Elementary, was one of the listed places with concerns, and we did observations for drop-off and pickup times, just noticed what sort of things were happening, and then compared that to reports. And then Jerome actually encouraged us to meet with the Traffic Commission, which we did, and presented those concerns with some feasible ideas for solutions that were within reach. And it was fantastic. Right then and there, we made decisions. We agreed to lengthen the school zone, the speed zone for the school to match the geography and the location of Van Buren Elementary on the hill, and just the way it's positioned to be more appropriate and safer for our kiddos walking to school. We figured out how to replace missing signage for the crosswalks, and then talked about how we could support the schools in rethinking their traffic flow plan for drop-off and pick-up time. So it's really a great example of how we were able to partner with the city. And then beyond that, our coalition members, various groups contributed and chipped in to do a safe walk to school day. 600 kids, backpack reflectors, different tips, information on how to get to and from school safety and
that case, we really, I think, a catalyst for action on something that had essentially been shelved for a while and we just didn't have the capacity to look at yet. Another great program that you might be familiar with, it's great that Caldwell was here, because they're one of our partners for this. If you were at the market at all last year, you might have been familiar with the senior produce program that was occurring. That was a pilot program that the coalition formed a committee and a task force for, and we had about $10,000 in funding from St. Luke's and Blue Cross of Idaho Foundation. And so through our partnership with the Plaza and our coalition members, we were able to coordinate volunteers to staff that booth every month or every week at the market, and provided $6 in vouchers for free fruits and vegetables for anybody over 60. And so with that, obviously, we're encouraging that healthy nutrition for our senior population, but more than that, it was getting out and socializing, it was getting physical activity, enjoying the great space at the Plaza, which are all crucial elements in the health of our senior population. And so fortunately, we had a lot of great support from the former Mayor Nan Polis, and he made sure that he secured some funds for us to be able to continue that into a second year. So this season, we are set to go again, in addition to the funds from the city. St. Luke's has again offered another $5,000, so we can do the same amount this next year. So we're fine tuning and continuing that to go. And I'll throw this out there. As I said, our booth is staffed by volunteers, so anytime any of you want to come and join us, and help give out those vouchers, we would love to have you. Or if you're involved in other organizations that would like to be a part of that, you can reach out to me personally and I'll get you set up. But I know I'm short on time, so I just wanted to say that, you know, the greatest role that this coalition plays really is gathering together a variety of key stakeholders and decision makers that are all either doing health-related work or can have some impact on the way we work for health in our community. We can keep one another informed of the needs that are being seen, whether you particularly have capacity or the scope of practice to do that. Somebody in the coalition may. Resources that are available, potential project ideas, funding opportunities, those sorts of things. We want to be a platform for that. So want you all to know that we exist as a resource for you. If you're noticing specific needs in the community, I think it's, you know, fortuitous that this is Fair Housing Proclamation night, because that is absolutely one of our focuses for making sure that all residents of Caldwell have equitable access to the things that directly impact their health. So, and of course, we look for your support for those opportunities to make meaningful change in Caldwell. So we just want you to know that we're here and we're doing things, and we absolutely welcome you and everyone here to jump on a Zoom meeting. We meet the second Wednesday of every month from 3 to 5 p.m. Try to keep that in some after school hours so that you can join as well. And you've got Daniel's and my contact information on your little info sheets there. So any questions that you have for me?
Perfect, thank you so much, Lindsay. Any questions, comments from council? Yes, Councilor Sutter.
Just a question, do you get any federal funds at all?
No, we do not have any funds, actually.
Okay.
So, we did, the Well-Connected Communities program, that we worked through, that we established the coalition with through our work from Extension, that was funded by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and the National 4-H Council.
Okay.
So our work that we put into it, to create it, was funded, and my position is funded by that, but the coalition itself doesn't receive any funding at this
I'm
point.
glad to hear that, because sometimes the strings attached for the money is so difficult.
Right, yes, yeah, and the program is set up to where the goal is for the coalition to be fully self-sustainable. So Extension just serves that role to get it started, try to bring in that community engagement, and then, you know, slowly backing off of the actual running of the coalition so that the community can really take ownership over that themselves.
And the other comment is just a request, could you email the council, the entries on via Zoom when you have their meetings as far as?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
That'd be great, appreciate that.
We'll
Thank
do
you.
that, yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Very good, thank you so much for coming, Lindsay, it was great to see you, so appreciate all you do. Okay, that concludes our special presentations. Is there anyone here for audience participation to discuss an item that's not on the agenda before us tonight? Okay, very good. So this will be, I don't know, this is items that are not on the agenda, so I don't know if you were gonna speak on the other.
That's not on the agenda.
Okay.
So, one of them is kind of a question. So I know that near my neighborhood, there's a area that's zoned for agriculture that's being used for business, and they're currently being, sued, I don't know what the correct term is. The PA is in court with them. Does the city council and the mayor, does anyone check when someone says, hey, we're gonna build houses, we're gonna build something, and then they do something else? And then it looks like he has a trailer park, so he has probably 50, and so he's been there for a while. Does anyone check that? Kind of, I don't know if anybody knows.
So, yeah, no, great question. If it's zoned ag, it's probably in the county, because the city doesn't have an ag zone. But yeah, if there are questions about, and Ms. Ruth can jump in on this as well, so if there's questions about, you know, is this compliance with existing zoning? Just a phone call to our zoning, or planning and zoning department, they'll look up and see, is it city, is it county? If it's county, they'll give you the number to them and say, okay, if their problem, you get to go talk to them. If it's ours, then they'll go out, we have a code enforcement officer that'll go out, you know, they'll look and see what's happening on the property and compare it to the zoning, see if it's an allowed use. If not, there's proper steps and procedures there where they'll notify the property owner, say, look, this is happening, this is where it doesn't meet code, you have this many days to remove it or to change it. If they don't, then they get a follow-up notice, and then if need be, they can go further than that. But yes, they do actively, typically it does require a complaint. We don't have the staff to be out there driving around. But, I mean, we've got our, you know, if Debbie's out doing site visits and she notices something, she'll mention it. Our building inspectors are driving all over the city, and they have a fairly good idea, so if they notice something, I'm sure Debbie's had that, I had that happen to me when I was working in the planning department, they'll come, hey, I saw this out here, does this meet code, and we'll look through it. So we do, when the city's made aware of it, we definitely research it and see what's going on and notify those property owners. Cool.
The other question is, and it's kind of for you guys and for the Destination Caldwell people, is that, so they're building the expo building, the Fair Expo building. Is the council and the mayor, is the city involved with that? Because it says Canyon County, Fair Expo building. And if we are, is it taking away from Destination Caldwell? Is Destination Caldwell adding on top of it? And then, so I guess, are we gonna compete with it? And then the last question is do we do surveys for questions? So like the parking that's gonna be coming up in the other meeting, and I'll not bring that up too far, but I've asked friends and family, and so far all of them have told me that if we put parking meters, they will not come to downtown Caldwell. So I mean, we could just do a quick survey. For all of the seniors back there, how many of you will come to downtown Caldwell with meters?
I think that's why they should be paying attention to the agenda, so that they can come here and voice their opinions. So those are our surveys, is when they come here and talk.
Yeah, and so that's, like we mentioned, we do have that workshop coming up to discuss those items, and we'll get into a lot of the details and minutia on that, I'm sure. So we do have that, so that's in June. Yeah, we want as many people to come and discuss that, talk about that as possible. In regards to the fair building, so this city property, but it's the county that's building it, so it'd be a county building. But, so they did get the building permits to the city. You know, we look at working hand in hand, so I don't think that's not gonna be a competition between Destination Caldwell and the county. Hand in hand, it's a great benefit to the city, you know, getting more people to the county fair really means more dollars in the city's budget. You know, you're getting more spending down there, you're getting the, you know, the sales tax, and it just adds to the benefit of Caldwell, that they come there and they spend money elsewhere in Caldwell. So it's a hand-in-hand partnership. We work very well together with the county in that, so yes, we're excited for that building. They're probably a little bit more excited, but we're really excited as well.
It looks good, I just wanted to make sure whether we're the.
Yep, we're definitely working together on it.
Awesome.
Okay, very good, thanks so much. Okay, that moves us on to our consent calendar. Mr. McGee.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the items under the consent calendar be approved with the changing of a typo on line 7. That number should read 135,665 and 20 cents.
Very good. So we have a motion to approve the consent calendar with a minor adjustment of the typo where 6 was left off, because if it's in your bank account, it's not a minor adjustment, but so $135,665.20. And then we have a second on that. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
McGee?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Ledbetter?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
The motion passes, the consent calendar has been approved. So that moves us to old business. So first item on old business, this was continued for March 2022. This is a public hearing regarding annexation, PUD, and subdivision request. So I'll just read this and then we'll jump right into it. Thank you. This is a quasi-judicial hearing involves the consideration of a land use request such as an annexation, rezone classification, or approval of a subdivision preliminary plat. The public hearing procedures, as required by the Idaho Code, are as follows. Oral and written testimony will be accepted from those who have signed in to speak prior to the hearing being declared open. When providing testimony, please come to the podium, state your name and address, which will be included in the record. Staff will first present a report regarding the application being considered, then public testimony will be taken. The applicant or the applicant's representative will present a summary of the request, then testimony of those in support will be taken, followed by those in neutral, and finally those in opposition to the request. The applicant will be offered the opportunity to provide rebuttal testimony. The applicant in their initial presentation will be given 8 minutes to provide the information to council. All others will be provided 5 minutes for their testimony. After the rebuttal testimony is given, the public testimony portion of the public hearing will be closed, and no new oral or written testimony will be allowed. So that is the procedure that we'll follow tonight. As mentioned, the first item is a public hearing for an annexation request, PUD and subdivision by Pontifex Capital to annex Obendorf subdivision, left lot 5, block 2, which is approximately 24.5 acres, with R2 medium density and C1 neighborhood commercial zoning. Concurrently, the applicant is requesting to vacate the internal public right-of-way and replat the Obendorf subdivision, accepting lot 5, block 2, as a planned unit development named Solstice subdivision. The PUD proposes 100 single-family residential lots, 1 commercial lot, with a gross density of 4 acres approximately. These applications are subject to a development agreement with the city of Caldwell. Property is located adjacent to and east of 3202 East Ustick Road. It is just west of, as you see it there, the intersection of Lake and Ustick. And with that, call the hearing examiner for this case with a recommendation for approval on January 25th, 2022. Ms. Root. Okay, could just be 1 second. We'll have that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Debbie Root, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. Tonight we're here to consider this case for Solstice subdivision. The applicant is requesting an annexation of about 24.5 acres as R2 medium density zoning designation and one lot that will be of 0.4 acres of C1 neighborhood commercial zoning. What's under consideration tonight is the annexation. We must annex this property prior to the request for vacation of the public right-of-way, and that's for the purpose of that right-of-way then being under the jurisdiction of the city of Caldwell, not the Canyon Highway District. So those things need to happen in a specific order in order for us to make those decisions. We'll talk about all of it, but the decisions need to go in an order specific to that. And then they're also requesting a planned unit development and with a preliminary plat for this application. As I indicated, they're requesting to annex 24.56 acres with an R2 medium density residential designation and 0.4 acres of C1 neighborhood commercial. The comprehensive plan has this area of the city designated as medium density residential. So their request is consistent with that. They're requesting a planned unit development with preliminary plat for 115 total lots, 100 residential lots, 1 commercial lot, 14 common lots. The overall gross density of this proposed application is 4.07.
So if they were just to do a straight, R2 or medium density development, they could have, 4 units per acre, and they're just over that, requesting the PUD, which allows them to have, a variety of housing units, both single-family, detached, and attached. And so, and they've done that, they've provided a good variety of housing opportunities, plus a lot of open space with this application. The vacation of public right-of-way, so this property is currently platted in the county as open door subdivision. And there is one lot that will not be included in this, property. It's an already developed lot in the southwest corner, and they chose not to be a part of the application, and so, and they take access along the, currently take access along the canal bank. And the, vacation of the public right-of-way was noticed out to all the agencies, and there are no utilities. It's unopened public right-of-way, unopened and unimproved. There's no power lines, no water, sewer, gas utilities or anything currently. The, property is in agricultural production. No other properties take access via the, platted public roads. And this vacation has to be taken up separately from the lots, which will just be replatted as the subdivision, because the statute reads exclusive of public right-of-way. So that's why we have to consider it separately. So, as indicated, the comprehensive plan is medium-density residential with a overall gross density of 4.7 dwelling units per acre. The applicant has complied with the planned unit development code. And to start that out, they must comply with 2 of 5 criteria in order to even be considered for a PUD application. They offer a maximum choice of living environments in this development and promote mixed-use integrated development. They have a lot in the northwest corner that is proposed for kind of neighborhood commercial type businesses, offices, or, you know, what I encouraged the developer to do was to we zone that commercial so that they have a full breadth, or not, a modified full breadth of opportunity that's available in the C1 zoning categories, and that could mean they could have a daycare there, an ice cream shop, a hairdresser, whatever they might be, versus a couple of limited items that would be allowed in the R2 zone through the PUD process on this property. The other thing that zoning it separately does is it limits the ability to turn that into a multifamily lot, multifamily residential lot. So, if we want to approve this as a mixed-use PUD, then it should, in fact, be mixed-use PUD. The developer is offering many amenities. They're required to have 4. They're offering or proposing a basketball court, energy certified housing, playground, tot lots, rear entry garages, tennis courts. They're also offering up the sundial art piece, 2 pickleball courts, youth scale sports fields. It's their open space there in the center of the development. Barbecue, Ramada and picnic tables, trellis and picnic tables, bench seating, bike racks, walking pathways, paved and natural. They have a good pathway system through this development, better than a lot of our developments come forward with. They also have a major pathway, a cougar pathway connection. We've seen several developments recently come through with the cougar pathway as part of the requirements for that. And so, as these developments come in, that pathway is quickly making some connections from north to south, from behind Caldwell High School, and it's gonna go down, cross over Karcher Highway, Highway 55, and really make a nice pathway, north to south in the community. They met the parking and open space requirements. The challenge with this is that, this property does lie in the Valley View School District. Valley View School District is, has provided letters, there's 2 letters within the staff report from the district, and, we as the city and our development community just have to continue this conversation about how are we going to serve the needs of the families within the community and the school district. So, with that, staff is recommending approval of the comprehensive plan as proposed, and, requesting the city council approve the vacation of the right-of-way that is currently platted within Open Door subdivision, and approve the PUD and preliminary plat as presented. And I'll stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Troop. Any questions, Councilor Doty?
Yeah, just based on my background, how about the ingress and egress into some of these one-lane roads here, such as this one here? Since I've been here, this seems to have the most of any subdivisions we've seen. I have one of these in my subdivision, and it's often blocked with private vehicles. And so have we discussed how fire or police will get up in there if necessary into those areas?
Currently, I believe the code has been modified to not allow parking on the common driveways, and they'll have to put up signage for that. And so, yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge in how, the common driveways are allowed. We have, increased the width of the common driveways in the code to be 26 feet instead of 20 to 24 feet, which was what was happening.
That's still not enough room for a fire truck to get through there unless we're gonna tear the
Well,
doors off the car.
they are also not greater than 150 feet in length, which is the fire code requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council for staff?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Stoddard.
I hate to sound like a broken record, but did they talk to the Valley View School District folks at all?
I'm going to leave that to, the applicant to chat with you, but, I know he's going to address it in some of his slide set, if he gets time to do that. If not, please ask him the question.
Okay.
They certainly are concerned with that as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you so much. We have only one person signed up to testify on this item. Mr. Pompton, Bob, come on down. If you'll please state your name, and your address for the record, and then 8 minutes will be provided, so.
Thank you, Mayor. Is it necessary for me to be sworn in?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, very good. Mayor and council, my name is Bob Taunton. I'm representing the applicant and also the property owner. In tonight's application, my address is 2724 South Palmshire Way in Boise. And thank you, Deb, for the overview. I can probably delete some of my slides. So, with me tonight is Teller Bard, who's the project engineer, and Teller is with Kimley Horn. So if there's any engineering technical questions which are above my pay grade, I'm sure he can handle those. Okay, am I driving? Okay.
Gotta go, it'll work.
There we go, okay. Deb mentioned the medium density, comp plan designation. You can see that it's a larger area than just our property, and it's obviously the transition
between the more intensive commercial and service uses to the east. The property is adjacent to C1 zoning and R2 zoning on the north side of Ustick. So we are really matching the zoning on our property with a small C1 piece, but R2 zoning as well. We won't go through all the entitlement summary. I think they've covered quite a bit of it, but we do comply with the comp plan, the R2 zoning district, we comply with the PUD ordinance standards. But I did want to point out a couple of areas where we do exceed. We have 13.8% open space, that's gross area, versus the 10% that's required in a PUD. We have, we exceed the optional amenities. We have 12 versus 4, which Deb mentioned. And our major pathway, the Cougar pathway that we're building through the property, is 10 feet versus 8 feet, which is what the code requires. 10 feet is more than national standard, so we just thought it was more appropriate to do that. As mentioned, the density is 4.07 or 4.17 units per acre. I'm not sure if I have that correct. But obviously, that's the single-family density. So obviously, the PUD was not proposed to increase density. It really had a lot to do with the mix of housing products that we would like to produce on the site. Hearing examiner has recommended approval, staff is recommending approval, and the applicant concurs with all of the draft conditions of approval. When we start out to plan things, we always try to develop, what are the features and the principles going to be for this particular community. Again, this is just 20 acres, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't go through that thought process. And I think the applicant, rather than doing a conventional subdivision, meeting the minimums of the code, and just building the biggest houses possible, and selling those to transplants from the West Coast, he really wanted to produce a distinct set of housing products that cater more closely to not only income levels, but lifestyle preferences. Obviously, I'm a moved-down buyer, and so at one point, 8 years ago, we moved from a larger house to a smaller house, and that's part of the thought process here. It's not just the millennials, it's the empty nesters that are thinking about different things. We wanted to have a connected and walkable community that, in discussion earlier on, which talked about healthy communities, that's something that we really focus on, is how do we make the healthy decision the easy decision? So that's providing all kinds of opportunities for active transportation. We want a central gathering place, so that creates kind of that community node, that gathering place, that, kind of the placemaking, and so we've successfully done that. We wanted to have really good connection to the Cougar pathway, and we'll show you how that's being done. And we wanted to improve the streetscapes, and I'll explain a little bit more on that. And then also looking at the park, we wanted to make it a safer place by doing an innovative lotting pattern on one side of the park. So this is the site plan. There are 4 distinct housing products. The commercial C1 site is in the northwest corner. As Jim mentioned, we have gone through the uses in the C1 zone, and we've just struck out those that are not appropriate for the scale and the type of use where it's really built integrated within a residential community. I should mention that we did a transportation impact study at TIS, and we, of course, are going to be subject to the transportation mitigation fee, so we're making a contribution towards the offsite improvements. You see the amenity area, the central park is a little over 2 acres. This is the breakdown of the housing product. So we have townhomes in three types of single-family detached. Single-family detached lots are nearly 3/4 of the total offering. The alley loaded lots are 62%. And not only does that enhance the streetscape where you have continuous block-long landscape strips instead of being broken up by driveways, for example. It's also a lot safer for young children as they learn how to ride a bike or use their scooters because there's no conflict with cars backing out of driveways. So that's something that's a great feature. And we have the number of units in the mixed product. So the landscape plan, I guess one thing I want to point out here on the plan is that all of the lots that side onto public streets have minimum 10-foot landscape setbacks. So that's instead of the normal solution you see, which is the fence is right at the back of the sidewalk. So this is really, you're putting landscape outside the fence in a more attractive setting for the neighborhood, particularly people that are looking across the street and perhaps side on lots. All of the amenities and all of the landscaping will be constructed in the first phase. So the first buyer to move in will have everything in place. It won't be a phased improvement. So that's a great value for the residents. This is the circulation plan that we've developed. Now, this is off-street. This doesn't include the sidewalks that are part of the street section. We've made it very easy for folks to be able to get through the community, particularly kids, a safer pathway to the central park. You can see that we have easy connections for the folks that are on the east side of the subdivision to get over to the major pathway. We have a loop system in the park, all kinds of micropaths and so on. So the circulation from a pedestrian standpoint, particularly for kids, I think is really quite excellent, so that they're off the street. So we did a couple of three-dimensional graphics to try and illustrate, visually what this could look like when it's finished. This is looking towards the northeast. Houston is right up at the northwest corner, if you like, or the upper left corner of the slide. Townhouses are facing Houston. The commercial piece is off just to the left there. But you can see how the central part is really the place-making feature. It's the main element within the park, within the subdivision. It's really going to be that identity, that sense of place kind of element that is really useful even in smaller subdivisions like this. If you have a master plan community, of course, you can do all kinds of great things. But in smaller communities, it's more difficult to do that. The major pathway is along the west side of the subdivision. You can see the canal that's there, the low-lying canal, which has been a 50-foot easement. And these are a few more. Okay, a couple of more slides. This is U-Stick. It shows a concept for the commercial building. It's just a concept. The townhouses that are further to the east, and there's a 25-foot bermed landscape buffer between U-Stick and the development. Another view along U-Stick, you can see that the townhouses actually, the living space fronts on the street as opposed to the conventional way of doing things, which is to back things on, put a fence, a much more attractive setting for the streetscape. These are the active recreation elements that are in the park. You can see the tennis and the pickleball and the basketball and our public art sundial. You can see in that central circle that's in the middle. A trellis, other features that are in the park. This is the active play area for the young children and a picnic ramada. This is another look from the east. It's the major kind of informal play field that is actually sized for youth soccer, under U9 soccer, so it's big enough to have some organized youth sports as well as just informal play. And then the Valley View School District. Yes, we did have a chance to talk to the district last week. We were very curious about what plans they had, what they were working on. And my takeaway was that the only plan that they have is to try once again to do a bond election in May. The applicant is supportive of a holistic, fair, and equitable funding solution, whether that means impact fees. I'm shocked that there aren't impact fees for schools. I didn't live here when this all took place, and I'm kind of astounded that that was left off the list. And that would be a great solution. That would be a pretty simple change by the legislature to do that, I think. Otherwise, if not that, we could do a district-wide mitigation fee. And that would be it should involve Nampa, Canyon County, and Caldwell. That would mean that there would be some sort of joint powers agreement between the cities and the county and the school district in order to be able to collect money and deliver it to the schools. The developer is quite willing to organize a developer group to work with the cities and work with the school district to advance some ideas. Also would be willing to support the bond election campaign, although we're obviously short on time. I'm not sure what the school district is doing about that. But the one thing that we don't support, and I certainly don't support from my decades of experience in real estate development, is a project-by-project ad hoc solution. It may feel good at the moment, to be able to get some sort of compensation from a project, but it's really not sustainable. It's a spit in the ocean in terms of really how we have to move forward to solve the problem. So the applicant is quite willing to participate, would not be opposed to impact fees, would not be opposed to any kind of district-wide mitigation. But at the moment, the only thing that appears to be on the table is the bond election in May. So just wanted to express that we have been in touch with them, and we'd like to find a way to support if we can. And I'd be available for questions.
Thank you so much. Any questions from council? Councilor Stoddard.
Mitigation fees, Mr. Hilty, what can we do about those? Does that need state legislative approval, or?
Yeah, certainly the ones that the applicant's talking about, would need state level approval, whether those are impact fees, or some other countywide shared costs. It's just simply not in place.
Unfortunately. You don't own any property other than this that you could, donate to the school district, do you?
No, but I can certainly tell you in my past doing master plan communities, I've definitely donated land for elementary schools. One thing that I might mention, if I can find it here, when I was speaking with Valley View, they referenced one of the Idaho statutes. It's in the Local Land Use Planning Act, 67-6513, which does talk about the ability to create an ordinance for the mitigation of effects of the subdivision development on the ability of political subdivisions of the state, including school districts, to deliver services without compromising quality and service delivery to current residents. That was something that I was unaware of, and when I was talking to Joey Palmer, he said they had just learned about that. And I'm no expert on state statutes. I don't know if this is a potential vehicle, perhaps, to begin to think about a mitigation fee, but they're looking at it and they're trying to see if it has any potential for them.
Okay, I'll talk to Mr. Palmer about that, because we have conversations just about every week on
I'm sure you
what
do.
we're gonna do, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the letter that was submitted by Valley, they even state, it's funny because they kind of say that, nobody's reaching out, but they said when somebody does, doesn't matter anyway, because I think it was Toll Brothers wanted to give them some property, and they said that doesn't even work because if it doesn't jive with where their planning is at, or what is, if they don't build it in so many years, then they can't keep it. So even donating property doesn't work. Valley even said so in their letter. So it's a really tough deal where it's at. So.
Exactly. I did the Avamore Plan community, and we initially had a site for West Ada, but they just said, functionally it doesn't work. It's not located properly, so.
Yeah, that's true. Any other questions from any council members? Yes, Councilor Doty.
I certainly like the blended concept of the different types and various houses, so certainly appreciate that, but, as well as with some, commercial there, so I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then so Mr. Thompson is the only one signed up to testify, so we appreciate that. If there's no other questions for you, go ahead and take your seat. And,
all right.
Is there any questions for staff from the council? Okay, so we do have one exhibit that we need to enter in. This is the exhibit CC-1000. This is a report summary provided to the council from staff. I'm just summarizing the lengthy staff report that was provided, so appreciate that. So that'll be, again, CC-1000. Yes, Mr. Hilty.
You would also identify, there were two PowerPoint presentations, one from Ms. Root and one from the applicant, which should probably be identified.
Okay, so we'll do Ms. Root to CC-1001, and then the applicant to CC-1002. And we have a copy of that one, correct, Mr. Orden? So we get that printed off into the file. Okay, so with that, I would stand for a motion to close public testimony. Is there a second? So I have a motion from Councilor McGee, a second from Councilor Doty to close public testimony. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So that moves us on to, let's see here, so we want to do two items, correct? So we're looking at the annexation in PUD and then also the vacation. Are you wanting those as separate motions, Mr. Hilty? Can we do this all together? Keep got it there.
That's right, so as District points out, you wanna do three different ones because the order of those, on this particular application is important.
Okay, very good. So then we'll start with the annexation. So I would open that up to, so this is for annexation of the approximately 24.5 acres, which would be an R2 medium density zoning designation, and then the half acre C1 neighborhood commercial zoning designation at the top. Be the northwest portion of the property. So discussion from council in regards to the annexation, and also a motion is appropriate at any time for that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm prepared to make a motion. I might have a quick question for Ms. Root, just on the language of the motion. We're talking about the PUD, and so at the end of that, we say with the conditions of approval listed in section 10 to be enumerated in a development, which I'm assuming is a development agreement. That's part of this motion as well, is that correct?
That is correct. And then all of the conditions, so in section 10 and then in section 16 will be combined.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And in regards to those, just so you're aware of those motions, you do not have to read the entire thing if you want to just make it, whether it's for approval or denial, whether it's an approval of the order, or the order decision to approve it as listed with the conditions as stated, or deny it, and if it is for denial, listing the reasonings for that. Do you not have it?
Yeah. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor.
For motion?
Yes.
I'm gonna read, Mr. Mayor, I'm just gonna read it because I think it'll be easier. If Mr. Allgood's listening, we miss you, Mr. Allgood. The Caldwell City Council accepts the findings of fact and conclusions of law contained herein, and based upon the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Mayor and City Council hereby order the case number ANN 21-000015, a request to annex the Obendorf subdivision, Lot 5, Block 2, with a zone designation of R2 for approximately 24 acres more or less and 0.4 acres of C1 zoning for the purpose of developing the proposed PUD and preliminary plat for Solstice subdivision is approved with conditions of approval listed in section 10 and 16 to be enumerated in the development agreement.
Very good. So we have a motion for approval of the annexation as written in the staff report. Is there a second? Very good. So we have a motion from Councilor McGee and a second from Councilor Williams to approve the requested annexation. Madam Guard, if you please call the roll.
McGee?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Doty?
Yes.
Register?
Yes.
Stoddard?
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. So that then would move us on to the next motion, and this is in regard to the vacation of the public road right-of-way. As was shown, that this was platted many years ago as just a standard right-of-way at that time. So this is to vacate that right-of-way to allow for the planning unit development preliminary plat for the Solstice subdivision. Is there any discussion or a motion for the vacation of the public right-of-way?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor McGee.
Thank you. A motion. Having annexed the Obendorf subdivision, plat book 14, page 19, and in accordance with the requirements of state statutes and city code, the Mayor and City Council hereby order that a request to vacate the unopened and undeveloped platted public road rights-of-way within the Obendorf subdivision south of the Ustick Road right-of-way, including Plant Drive, McDonald Drive, McDowell Drive, and Obendorf Drive, is approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. So a motion from Councilor McGee, a second from Councilor Stoddard to approve the vacation of the public road right-of-way as described. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
McGee?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Doty?
Yes.
Stoddard?
Yes.
Register?
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. Those roads have been vacated. So that leads us to our final item, the planned unit development preliminary plat for Solstice subdivision. Any discussion from the council or motion?
Mr. Mayor, for a motion.
Councilor McGee.
Just very quickly, before I make the motion, I will make a comment, because I think that Councilman Static continues to bring this up, and I think that his concerns are legitimate. I would be interested in and hearing about what Joey and that section of code, I'm not familiar with that section of code either. Certainly, perhaps Mr. Hilty can enlighten us about what exactly that does and what exactly that means, because we clearly continue to have an issue. We need to continue to let these great developments like this one take place, Mr. Mayor, but we've got to find a way to try to fix this as well. So just a comment. Mr. Mayor, based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the Caldwell hearing examiner hereby recommends to the mayor and city council that case number PUD 21-000015, SUB 21-000042, a request for a planned unit development and a preliminary plat for Solstice subdivision with 115 lots, including 100 attached and detached residential lots in an R2 zone, 1 C1 zone commercial lot, and 14 common lots on 24.56 acres is approved, with conditions of approval listed in section 16 to be enumerated in a development agreement.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor McGee and a second from Councilor Stoddard for approval, of Solstice subdivision, plan unit development, and preliminary plat. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
McGee,
Yes.
Stoddard,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
Register,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Very good, so that approves this request. So, and I would just echo the sentiments that were shared. Mr. Thompson, we really appreciate this request coming forward. You can tell you put a lot of thought and effort into it. It wasn't just to come and get it done and get it approved, so you did put a lot of that into it. We appreciate that. I hope that other developers take note, and when they do come forward, they do the same on that, so it should be a great development. Excited for that. Yeah. Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So moved.
So we had a motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Doty to close this public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good, that matter is closed. And that moves us on to the next item, and you'll notice that you have some cheat sheets in front of you, so this would be the time to pull those out, if you're so willing to put yourself out there for a motion on this bill and ordinance. So this is the old business, item number 2, to consider bill number 62, ordinance number 3381, for case number ANN 21-15, with the request to waive the rules, pass on the first reading, and approve the summary for publication. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Doty. Oh, excuse me, I do need to read it by title only, so hold on one second. Bill number 62, ordinance number 3381, an ordinance determining that certain land lays contiguous to the city limits of the city of Caldwell, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said lands should be annexed to the city of Caldwell, Idaho, as part of the R2 medium density residential zone and C1 neighborhood commercial zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Caldwell, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the clerk of the city of Caldwell to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215. Councilor Doty for your motion.
I move to waive the three-reading process and consider bill number 62, ordinance number 3381 on its first reading by title only.
Very good. Do we have a second? So we have a motion from Councilor Doty, a second from Councilor McGee, to approve, or to waive the three-reading process and consider bill number 62, ordinance number 3381, by title, its first reading by title only. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Doty,
Yes.
Stoddard,
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
Register.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Very good. So motion passes. Do we have a sponsor of this bill and ordinance?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Doty.
I move to sponsor bill number 62, ordinance 3381, move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Very good. So a motion from Councilor Doty, a second from Councilor Stoddard to sponsor bill number 62, 3381 and move for its passage. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Williams,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
Stoddard,
Yes.
Register, McGee.
Yes.
Very good. Then that approves that, and bill number 62, ordinance number 3381 has been approved on its first reading by title only. And that now moves us on to action item number 3 under old business, which is bill number 32, ordinance 3417 for vacation of public right-of-way, Oberdorf subdivision, with the request to waive the rules, pass on the first reading, and approve the summary for publication. And I will read this by title only and stand for motion. Bill number 23, ordinance number 3417, an ordinance reciting petition for vacation and reciting appropriate notice. Yes. Bill number 32 or 23? 32. Very good. So do we just have the wrong number on this sheet here? Okay, thank you for catching that. We were checking to make sure you're paying attention. You passed. Well done. That means you get to leave early tonight, right?
I wish that's okay. I don't know, what's on the?
So 32 is on this.
32 is on the.
23 is on this.
Seems like it's 23, okay, I think that's what you said.
Oh, okay, so maybe this one, okay, so bill number 23. Looks like Mark's still checking us. Okay. So we're gonna check, we're gonna go with 23, and that's what the odds are on. If we have to change it before we get to the end, we can do that, so, thank you for catching that. So, again, bill number 23, ordinance number 3417, an ordinance reciting petition for vacation and reciting appropriate notice was given a public hearing determining that vacation of said public rights-of-way in the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, described below, shall be made, and determining that vacation of said following rights-of-way are in the best public interest for the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho. Do we have a motion to, it is 23, it's verified. So do we have a motion to waive the reading process and consider this bill and ordinance on its first reading by title only?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Sonic.
I move to waive the three reading process and still consider bill number 23, ordinance number 3417 on its first reading by title only.
Very good. Do we have a second? Second. So I have a motion from Councilor Sonic and a second from Councilor Williams to waive the three reading process and consider bill number 23, ordinance number 3417 on its first reading by title only. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Donnie?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Register? Yes. Jody?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. Do we have a sponsor of bill number 23, ordinance number 3417?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Sonic.
I move to sponsor bill number 23, ordinance number 3417, move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
Very good. Do we have a second? Second. So the motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor McGee, to sponsor bill number 23, ordinance number 3417, and move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Donnie?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Register?
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. That approves the vacation of the right-of-way. That moves us on to action item number 5, and this is consider resolution authorizing an amendment, 4, you're correct, thank you very much. So action item number 4, consider bill number 21, ordinance number 3415, pertaining to the election of the mayor of the city of Caldwell with the request to waive the rules, pass on the first reading, and approve the summary for publication. So this has been heard before, and was moved on. However, we did have some interest in providing public testimony, which was not provided originally at the original hearing, and that is always appropriate to allow for that. So it was noticed. We should notify Mr. Larson, who came forward and said, maybe I'd like to speak to this. So that is the reason why this looks familiar. That's why. But it's always great to have public input in that regards. So, Mr. McGee, you have a question?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, procedurally, and I'm getting older,
Mm-hmm.
I thought, the public input is important. Did we not vote on this?
So yes, it was voted on, in that regards, and it did not, or was it voted on?
It was, no.
No, originally, this was about a month or so ago.
There was a first vote
Right.
on it, but there wasn't sponsorship with second portion. So it failed because of lack of sponsorship.
Okay. So, I'm right, we did vote on it, but there was no
He
sponsorship.
wasn't here, and we wanted to.
So that was actually, I think,
That was
another one with the,
yeah, so you did.
oh, the
vote,
council
but it
date change,
failed.
or the
Right.
council date change.
And so it was brought back, now it's under new ordinance. It's not
Okay.
an amendment to it, it's a new ordinance.
Okay, I guess, I just wanna make sure I'm clear in my mind. Again, there's nothing against public testimony at all. I think we should always have public testimony, but we voted and we killed the motion, right? It failed. But now it's being brought back because there wasn't a sponsor to the bill?
So the reason it's brought back, there was no public testimony taken during the hearing. There was people that said we wanted to give testimony, but we were not provided the
Okay,
opportunity.
so we're making a procedural judgment that because the procedure wasn't followed, that the vote needs to be brought back in a proper manner. Got it, thank you.
Within the ordinance number.
Okay, thanks for the clarification, thank you.
Yeah, for sure, thank you so much. Okay, so with that, do we have a sign-up sheet on this one? No. So no sign-up sheet, so if you would like to testify in this, it is a legislative matter, so just please come forward, state your name and address for the record. Again, and so what this is, this bill number 21, ordinance number 3415, I don't know if actually, Mr. Hilton, if you want to give a brief rundown might be good rather than myself doing that, if you don't mind.
Mayor, good evening, council. For the record, I'm Mark Hilty, the city attorney. My business address is 1303 12th Avenue Road in Nampa. Idaho, obviously the ordinance has to do with the election of mayor, and we have looked at this a couple of times here this spring, and just as a quick reminder, Idaho state law, the state code, provides for the city council to choose one of two ways in which the mayor could be elected. And just to simplify, one of those would require a majority of votes, in other words, 50% plus one. If there are multiple candidates for the office of mayor, it could be that no candidate gets that 50% plus one majority, and then in that event, there would be a runoff election between the top two vote getters, and then presumably, obviously, somebody's gonna get more than half the votes. The alternative way to do that is by a plurality, so that the candidate with the most votes takes the office of mayor, is elected, even if that is less than half of less than half, in other words, there's no majority. So the way to think about the legislation is, you'd either have a majority required, which could, in the course of things, result in a runoff election, or you'd have a simple plurality where whichever candidate got the most votes, even if that was 30%, that person would then take office. The current situation in the city of Caldwell would require a majority and would, as we all know, result in a runoff election. So this legislation would change that. It would change it from a required majority and possible runoff to a simple plurality. Whoever gets the most votes wins. Any questions on the legislation? And I guess, I didn't mean to cut you off, Councilor Register. A yes vote on this bill would change it from a majority requirement to a plurality requirement.
I have a question.
Certainly.
So with the way that we have it now, because I think the reason this is coming up is because of the cost of the runoff and, that kind of thing. Are we always going to be forced into a runoff if we keep it this way, or would there have been a way to avoid the runoff, therefore avoiding the cost?
Yeah, good question, Mayor and Council Register. You would not necessarily have a runoff if you had a candidate with a majority of votes. But if you don't, and we looked at this very closely, and it was my conclusion that the city had, under state law, the city had this choice, majority or plurality, and that there was not a way to avoid reaching one of those conclusions. So in other words, if a majority is required, and one of the candidates decides to back out, the problem you're left with is you still have a remaining candidate that never got 50% of the vote, which is required not only by city ordinance, but by state law, given the election that had been made,
So
the choice that had been made by the council.
Okay, so there's not a way to avoid a runoff if somebody doesn't get their actual 50%,
That
no
is
matter
my
what,
opinion.
even if the other candidate doesn't want to push it.
Correct.
Okay, and then my other question was, is it, so I just need a refresher on this. I know the answer somewhere, but, and maybe, I don't know if you're gonna know the answer, but do you, remember what the number is of how close the votes have to be able to request a runoff? So if we move it to a plurality and it's close enough that they can then request a runoff anyway?
My memory of the law is that there is not an ability to request a runoff, you can request a
Or
recount.
recount.
And that doesn't impose the same cost, and I don't remember what the margin is, it's very small.
Yeah.
And so it's unlikely to occur, that there would be a mandatory recount. But again, that's a shorter and less expensive procedure than an actual runoff election.
And then I guess my only other question is, in this area, do you know, like, how many other cities do it our way, or?
You're stretching my memory. We looked at that, more than a year ago, because, that was a question that came up with the last council, when they thought about making this change. As I recall, it was, there was a significant division. Lots of cities went one way and lots of cities went the other way. It seems like there was a slight tendency, for cities, and I looked mostly at larger cities in the state, cities comparable to Caldwell, did have a majority requirement, for election.
And I thought there was only 2 cities that required the majority in the state, Boise and I think it was Pocatello, but I could be way off on that.
My memory may be off as well, Mayor, but I'm just going off memory, it did seem like there were some in each campaign.
Any questions for
I
staff?
actually do have another question,
Yeah.
maybe you guys can answer this. Prior, or a while ago, it was the same way for council, right? Where you had to have a 50% vote. So what was it that caused you to change it?
Always my fault.
Okay, I'm just curious, why, we changed it for council and not for mayor? Like, what the reasoning was behind that, I guess.
And I believe actually the council's always been just most votes wins, so.
Was it not a percentage for a while? There was, I do remember it was a percentage for a while, right?
I think what ultimately the consensus was, and what the conventional wisdom was, at least for the last council, was because we did indeed talk about the mayoral race even back then. I guess it would be, 2 or 3 years ago now, and the consensus was, that the mayor race was just a different race, because the mayor is the chief executive. You can argue it's a more important race, and it required, or we desired, a 50% or more of the people of Caldwell to elect that person. When we went back and looked at the city council, it was my understanding to have city council runoffs, potentially 3 city council runoffs in one election. At that point, we thought might be just too much, and that the city council could just remain as it was. And so that's kind of the history. Unfortunately, I've been involved with the history of it, but that's kind of where we landed.
Just for what it's worth, and I obviously didn't vote, but I remember Mayor Nancola saying, that as he was not going to run again, anticipated there could be a slate of numerous candidates running for mayor. He just felt like it was important, that whoever wound up in that chair have more than 50% of the people in the city behind them, as, I guess, to avoid the specter of illegitimacy, right, if you only had 35% of the vote, something like that. And now, again, whether that was what the rest of the council felt, I don't know, but I remember seeing a lot of head nods that was part of the thing.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor was there as well,
Yep.
city council.
Yep. And so according to my Google search, I just did real quick, there's 7 cities that do require it in the state: American Falls, Blackfoot, Boise, Eagle, Mountain Home, Pocatello, and Spirit Lake, wherever Spirit Lake is. No offense, but I've never heard of it before. So, northern Idaho. So those are the 7 cities in the state that require a runoff for mayor if you don't get the majority.
Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Hildy, I don't know if you even know the answer to this question, but I'll torture you with it anyway. To your knowledge, have we ever had to require a runoff for mayor in the past in the city of Caldwell?
For last year?
Yes.
No.
So it would be.
No, not that I recall. 24 years. Yeah, so it had been a couple of decades
So it's fair to say this is an anomaly, not a normal situation, and the idea behind the majority rather than plurality would be to ensure that something worse might not come to pass because there's so many people running that all it takes is one candidate to get one more vote than another, and they take that seat. Is that how I understand it? Is that correct?
Let's see if I can address that from policy standpoint, okay? And I'm the attorney. I can tell you that you got choice A or choice B. What you do with those choices is up to you. But from a policy standpoint, I think the concern was, having the mayor take office that had 2/3 of the people vote for somebody else. Now, that wouldn't have been for one other candidate, that would have been obviously for several other, spread around to several other candidates. But the question is that where you want to be as a city? Is that your vision for the role of for the chair and the mayor? Or, are you willing to risk the delay and expense of a runoff election to?
Once every 24 years or whatever. And if I were to speak hyperbolically, if we had 50 people run, all it would take would be one of those to get one more vote than anybody else, and they would be mayor. Okay.
But that's also the case if you only have 2 candidates.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hupkey?
Mr. Mayor, just comment, I think that with our growth and everything, Jeff, that we would probably have that more often in the future than we would in the past, as far as these runoffs. Because I think more people, when they come into this area, would be interested in these type of offices. So I would think it's not gonna be an anomaly, it'll be something that'll happen every so often, so just a comment.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Hupkey? Okay, thank you so much, appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Larson, please come forward, state your name and address, and then the time is yours.
Dave Larson, 13951 Levendi Court, Caldwell, Idaho, 83607. I did not know it died, so if I knew it died, I wouldn't have brought it up, sorry. So from my understanding, there's only a couple approaches to possibly have someone win, it's plurality, most votes, majority, 50+%, or you have proportional representation, which is you have everybody who has every belief on here, so you have a constitutionalist, a big Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, and then you have 5 seats with 5 people with different views. So, didn't think that one was effective for anybody. The only other possible suggestion that I was thinking if we were trying to save money, and so we have approximately 60,000 people in Caldwell, and 9% of them are under 5, so those people don't make income. But the majority of them could afford $1 for the $50,000, that was what I believe you said, for the runoff, so approximately $1. I'm okay with paying $1 to make sure I get the correct mayor. I don't know how everyone else feels, y'all make the decisions, but the other possible option, I didn't know if this would alleviate some stuff, is you have ranking candidates, so you would have majority with ranking, so you would say A, B, C, A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, and then if A and B are both tied, everyone sees how everyone else ranks their people, and then that's how you get to 50% voting. So that's the only possible other solution that I have possibly come up with, that other cities do use. But if it died, I'm okay with it dying, but I just didn't know it died, so sorry, McGee, for torturing you.
No. So, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I was actually with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. We went down to Logan, Utah, and visited with the Mayor of Nibley, just outside of Logan, and their youth council. And that's actually how they do it, is they do a ranking system, so that you never get a runoff. So you do that when you start dropping off numbers until somebody finally gets to 50%. But to do that, I think as was mentioned, that the legislature would have to amend state code to allow, because right now it's one or the other, and there's nothing in between. So something to maybe talk with your legislator about, to see if they're willing to look at that, to give cities that option, because then you could still get to the 50% without having to do a runoff. But right now, actually, hands are tied, it's one or the other, so, okay, very good. Thank you. Any questions?
No, just clarification from the city attorney. Mark, if on this item, a motion to table removes it from future, from us bringing this back again unless it's under a different number, is that correct? A motion to table.
We just died.
Yeah, you could table it, you want to get it in place in a time frame prior to the election, which again, we're looking at 2.5 to 3 years away.
Right.
But there's certainly no urgency to it.
Right, so motion to table essentially just takes it away as opposed to an up or down vote.
or just no motion at all, and then it dies. So, I mean, however the council wishes to do it. Either put it to bed or just linger and bleed to death slowly, it's up to you. Okay, Ms. Dittenberg, I'm guessing you're wanting to speak. Please come forward, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Tammy Dittenberg, 2220 Arlington Avenue, Caldwell, Idaho. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I was glad that this died, when it came up before, because I think this is one of those bills that, looks like it meets an end, on its face, but I think the law of unintended consequences follows things like this, and you end up with a slate of 10 candidates that's stacked, and you end up with a mayor that comes in with maybe 16% of the vote. And it could happen easily with no, kind of way to, make sure that we get a mayor with the backing of the people. So I just wanted to throw that out there, so worrisome for me.
Thank you, appreciate it so much. Ms. Warwick, if you please state your name and address.
Julie Warwick, 107 South 13th Avenue, Caldwell. Those of you who know me know that I just pretty much tell it like it is, and I was really glad it died to it. I was really surprised to see it back on the agenda for tonight, which is why I'm here. Normally I'm watching by Zoom. This got me here.
Whatever it takes to get you down here.
There you go, there you go. I kind of with Tammy, you know, you could have 12 people run for mayor. You know, 6 of those folks are all friends of each other who decide they want to run for mayor, just so that one person will get the votes they want to. Just a bad idea. We need to have our mayor be somebody that over half of the people that choose to vote actually support. You know, we already have few enough people that vote. You know, let's at least get somebody in there that half of the people that choose to participate support.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on this item? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay, very good. So, do we need a motion to close public testimony on this item? Okay, that's what I was thinking, so. Okay, so then I guess it is before the council for either, whatever motion to approve, to deny, to table, to just die of lack of a motion, it's up to the council. If you want to discuss it, you're welcome to, so. Okay, so I will read it as this sits here. Okay, so this is ordinance number 3415, bill number 21, an ordinance enacted by the Caldwell City Council amending Chapter 3, Article 5, Section 030501, Caldwell City Code pertaining to the election of the mayor of the city of Caldwell, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith. Is there any discussion? Oh, very good. Any motions? Okay, then let the record reflect that ordinance number 3415, bill number 21, died for lack of a motion. Save me a signature. Okay, so then that does move us on to action item number 5. This is continued from April 4th, 2022, and this is considered resolution authorizing an amendment to the City of Caldwell Employee Handbook, Section 8, promotion, transfer, and separation. A, recruitment. 2, nepotism. It's an effective date of April 2nd, 2022. As I believe you all remember, we did discuss this item last council meeting. There was some concern in regards to the layout and if supervisors there should be some there where you can't supervise relatives, things like that. So what we ended up doing was both of them are on there. So the one that was here the last time we talked, and then one with the changes that was proposed on that. And so that way it gives you kind of the option, rather than having to do this again if you don't like the one that came forward, kind of gives you the option of which one do you like best, and that's the one that you can move forward. So,
Mayor?
yes.
So I have those, I think we all got the ones with the changes that were sent out by HR. And then I also asked for the policies from the surrounding cities to kind of compare. We are definitely the most restrictive of all of them. In fact, Middleton doesn't even have a policy other than the state code that relates to their city council. So what I did is I took, I just was looking over some of the changes that they made through HR. I preferred personally draft number 1, draft number 1. And I took from draft number 1, made two really small changes, that I printed out and left for you there and underlined, and I would propose that we accept that one.
So is this one different than the two,
So if you take draft number one,
so the one we looked at 2 weeks ago,
I,
or the new one? Because I think draft, at least from here, it says draft one is the one that we considered on April 4th, and draft two was the new one that made it less restrictive.
so it looks to me that draft number one is less restrictive, where it says the city will employ immediate family members of current city employees as long as such employment would not create a conflict or interest for unethical behavior. Is that the one you're looking
Okay, I
at?
think this memorandum just has them backwards.
Yeah,
The
it
memorandum I'm
did.
looking at, I think just flipped them.
And so on this draft that I have here, I can pass it around, it looks to me like this, I mean, obviously that the state code is listed as far as it comes to the mayor and city council. It then says that we will employ immediate family members, and that the city permits employment of qualified relatives as long as, and then lists out those things. Maybe I do need to be looking at draft two.
And maybe while you're looking at, so this is not city code, so this is very different from the one we just considered where that is code. This is policy manual within the city of Caldwell. So again, typically would probably not take testimony on this. This is, again, different from what was before this. And if I'm off on that, Mr. Hoops, you can let me know, but this isn't ordinance, this isn't code, this is policy manual. So probably just appropriate for the council to discuss and to decide.
So keep going.
Yes, keep going.
Okay, so I am looking actually at draft one. So it was number A, that seemed to be pretty restrictive, where it talked about the second and third degrees and all that kind of stuff, and that's where I made an edit of a change to be considered. I left number B and C and D alone. In the last paragraph, it talks about the requirement for the employees to notify supervisors if they develop a relationship, that kind of thing. And it leaves also there, the city, some options. And the only other thing that I changed in there was just making it specific that if a problem or a potential problem is identified, then going forward, as opposed to it making it sound like the minute you have a relationship with somebody, somebody has to quit their job. That's kind of what it sounds like it stands. So, I don't know if you want to take a look at this draft, I guess you're doing that.
Mm-hmm. And maybe it's for Mr. Hilty as well, where this is not a code, ordinance, can we make it something that's not on here, a change and still move forward with it?
Mayor, you can, the council has the authority to adopt, this kind of policy. You might wanna have, I mean, if it's not one of the two that were vetted through HR, you might wanna have that looked at, with HR. I'm also seeing, and I think this maybe is just a typo, on the one that was circulated by, Councilman Register, the first line is a little bit off. It says the city will employ immediate family relatives. I don't think that's quite the language on either of the drafts, and so we might want to.
I just actually copied it out of the one that HR gave, and I think I might have just forgot to take out the word relative. So.
Well, I think it should be, the word should be family members.
Yeah, that's.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think I took out the wrong word, so I just copied it and didn't erase the right one.
And I think this is draft number one, that this is, if I'm not mistaken.
I just erased the wrong word, so it should be immediate family members and not relatives. And I did send it to HR, but I don't believe she's, in the office.
So she was out today,
Mhm.
I know, so,
So I can send this to her
yeah.
as
Mr.
well.
Ricky?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Register's done a lot of hard work on this, and she spent a lot of time on this, and I totally respect her for that, and it's obviously something that's important to her, and she's doing a good job of presenting this. My concern about passing this now, and voting on this now, is that, I think we've just closed applications for the next chief of police for the city of Caldwell. And Mr. Mayor, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's your intent, you correct me if I'm wrong, but within the next 30 to 60 days, you'd like to have someone in place on a permanent basis to run that department, if I'm not mistaken. To me, the section of code affects the police department probably the most for exactly the reasons that Councilman Register has outlined. Although Councilman Allgood is not here, he's former chief of police there, he had some concerns as well. My suggestion to the council would be this, is that we put pause on this in the work that Councilman Register has done. We wait until we have a new police chief, and then that police chief, he or she can give some input onto what this policy should be in his or her eyes, or maybe what the policy has been in a department that he or she has served at. This seems like a big policy decision to make without input from the person who it's going to affect the most. And so, again, Councilman Register's worked very hard on this, put a lot of time on it. I just think it's not ripe for decision until we have a police chief who can actually comment as to if it's valuable in his or her management practice.
Okay, like I said, it's up to the council, how you want to proceed on it.
Sure.
Yes,
I know that the current administration has concerns with it, simply because of the way they do shift bids, and the way the cycle of the weeks go, and the way they rotate, and because it's such a small agency, and there's overlap in SWAT, in CITF, in different situations, it creates challenges for them. And so I think there's wisdom in making sure that the administration with this will most affect. I'd be concerned as well for fire because of some of the similar possible conflicts and the way that they have to work together. So I still have some reservations about this for their sake, and think that it might be wise to, since we're so close, to put this off until the people that we're going to affect most have a chance to weigh in. And I know I spoke with Alyssa, and forgive me, I don't remember her last name, but I know she was comfortable with option number 2 as well, but that's where the discussion is. And so I think perhaps waiting might have wisdom.
Other discussions?
And I certainly don't disagree that people should weigh in on it, for sure. But a couple of things. The policy as it's written this was one that was given or written by Human Resources with the exception of 2 very, very small changes. One of those that said that no person should become employed in a department or division where they would be directly supervised as opposed to an all-over supervisor, because sergeants can supervise people whether they're on their team or not. And at the bottom saying if a problem or potential problem is identified, then these are the actions. But I want to point out that that Councilman Allgood's issue with the nepotism policy was, I believe, a specific incident. It wasn't about shift bids and this and that and trying to make it work, because historically people have been married or living together and working at the department, and it's been fine. There was one specific incident that he was concerned about, and I don't know exactly how it was handled. I do believe that one of the parties left. But prior to that, there had been numerous incidents where people had lived together or been married. And so what's happening is that people are living together and having relationships and not disclosing it, because they're afraid that one of them will have to be terminated, fired, or transferred. And so now we're pushing them into a place of having to be dishonest because of this policy. And so when we were talking about the airport, so when one of the ladies walked out, she said to me that we shouldn't be wasting our time listening to what the pilots are saying, not everybody gets a vote. And I disagree with that. And one of the things that I ran on in my election was listening to the employees. And this has been a huge issue for employees whose family members, whether that's nephews, nieces, aunts, cannot work for the city right now anywhere or in the same department. And because of this policy, so we're saying we want to make Caldwell more desirable, so we're doing an Indian Creek project, and we want to make Caldwell more desirable, so we're doing this. But as far as our employees we're telling them, we're not only going to pay you less money, but now we're going to tell you you can't work with people that you live with or that you're related to. And oh, by the way, if you work here and your aunt goes and works over here, then you got to quit. And that's ridiculous. So like I said, this policy that I'm looking at right here was submitted by Human Resources with the exception of number A, that I changed, like I said, so that it would, they wouldn't be able, or, so that they wouldn't have an issue with directly supervising people, because they can be moved from teams. And then again, and I'm gonna keep saying this until I'm blue in the face, but I worked at the police department with my husband, and there was not an issue, and there was an issue between two people who weren't even married, but were related in some weird, strange way, and that's where that concern came from. And then I'm also gonna say that because of this policy, it does not say that we have to hire anybody. It gives the city the latitude to not hire somebody if it's going to be an issue. So there's that too. It does not say the city is going to hire you because you're related to somebody. So I don't think we're putting ourselves in a position where we're going to be forced to hire somebody, but we are allowing ourselves to hire somebody and be more attractive to people coming to the city, because there's at least two people that I know that had to go to other agencies that would have been really great employees for the city, and we turned them away because they're related to somebody else.
Any other discussion or any motions? Or what's the?
Mr. Mayor, I was just gonna say, I don't even know that I disagree with much of what Councilman Register just said. My contention is, I would just, in order to make a decision on this, that I think really affects the big two, the police department, the fire department, that we should hear from the leadership of those departments. And until we have a police chief that's hired, and he or she's able to comment and give some testimony on this, I just don't think it's right. I think it's premature. I respect what Councilman Register's done. I feel like we could put a bookmark right in where she's left us at, right? Which is getting to the right, making compromise and coming to a conclusion. But I'd sure like to hear from Mr. Mayor, whoever it is that you ultimately select and we ratify to be the new police chief.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any motions? Whether to continue, to table, to approve, one or the other, whatever the council. Yeah, oh, sorry. Yes, Mr. Orton.
If it's of interest to the council, I could offer just a couple thoughts that.
So I think when you guys push that button, it turns it off, just so you know.
Check.
Oh, it's just not working at all.
I turned it way up, I'm gonna look here.
No.
I'm not sure.
Oh, just gotta push it right.
Or maybe push R now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So just a couple things. I have heard from several employees who felt like, hey, we're struggling for employees, we really are in several departments. Maybe this being less restrictive would help us to acquire people. So that's one thing I hear a lot from our department managers and employees in general, in public works. I will tell you that I did have an experience personally with, a related employee. I had one of my department managers, whose son-in-law was employed in a different department. He violated city policy and was brought forward to be disciplined and quit in a huff. He was as angry about being disciplined, and made things a little weird with his father-in-law for a while, but that did blow over. And so I think my experience was much less severe than what may have been experienced in the police department. But in any case, having access to more employees, potential employees, would be nice right now for us. So just, I guess, some pro and con for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Orton. Tell your kids to grow up quicker and get older, so you start, so I guess, well, maybe move that higher or not, I guess maybe that would matter, so.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would still like to make a motion to accept, the policy that I drafted, with the exception of changing the word from relatives to members.
Okay, so that would be, and we do have a copy of that here, so basically, the draft one, if I'm not mistaken, which was the one that was heard a couple of weeks ago with just change of, as you said, relatives, members, and then the other changes, if I could borrow this from the Councilor Doty. On A, it says, no person shall become employed in a department or division of a department where a related employee serves in a supervisor capacity, and these are the added two words, would directly supervise, appoint, remove, or discipline a relative. And then after section D, there's a long paragraph, halfway through it, the line before it ends in the same department or division, and then adds in these words, if a problem or potential problem is identified. And then the rest of it, one or both of the affected employees will be given the option to transfer to another position in the city for which he or she is qualified. Is that the one on that? Okay. So that is a motion to approve that as noted. Is there a second? I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second discussion on that motion.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I know this sounds like deja vu, but for a substitute motion.
Yes, I had a feeling that might be coming. So yes, your substitute motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that this be tabled until we can hear from the new fire department director and the new chief of police.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Second. Very good. So we do have a motion and a substitute motion. And with regards to the substitute motion was to table this we'll just table it, really not until a time certain, just until a new police chief and has opportunity for that with a second. So motion from Councilor McGee, a second from Councilor Williams, to table this item. Madam Clerk, or is there any discussion on the substitute motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
McGee?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Doty?
No.
Exotic?
No.
Register?
No.
So substitute motion fails on a 2-3 vote, so that would move us to the original motion, which was to approve the nepotism policy as was, again, this is draft one, that was from the original hearing a few weeks ago, with those changes as noted. And maybe let's put that as an exhibit, just so we have it. We're gonna write it as exhibit. You write it down there for me? CC 1000, just so we know what we're looking at. And that would be as with the changes as noted. And that was a motion by Councilor Register, and I believe the second was from Councilor Doty, correct? On that. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll on that motion?
Mr. Register?
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt. If I could just propose a friendly amendment. I think line one I'm looking at Councilor Register's version. I think line one, instead of the city will employ immediate family, it should be the city may employ immediate family, which I think is.
Yes, that's fine. That was, again, that was what was taken off of what was sent by HR, but the city may employ would be perfectly fine.
Right, and yeah, that will did exist.
That gives them the,
Right, and then, talks about family relatives, immediate family relatives probably should be immediate family members.
we did change that.
Okay, my apologies.
No, thank you for catching that. So,
Mr. Mayor, before the motion's made, perhaps
the motion is
we've made several changes now to this on the fly. I wonder if we should just take 5 minutes and let Mark read the rest of it, in case other changes need to be made. Seems like we're making a lot of changes.
The rest of it is what was submitted by HR.
Right, but we've already changed what HR's said twice.
I could even just read it. Would that, read this one page, want me just to read it, and as we go through it, is that all right with?
We certainly could. I'm looking at one other issue that is of concern to me, on Councilor Register's version, and I think we could probably fix that tonight too. If you look at the final paragraph was broken into 2 paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at the end of that top paragraph, and it talks about, potential problems noted above exist or could exist. Only one of the employees may be allowed to remain in the same department or division, period. And then it starts the next and says, if a then you talk about transferring employees. There's a little bit of an ambiguity there. I think the first sentence, which I think is consistent with current policy, says somebody's gonna have to leave. And I think the intent of the amendment is to condition that on a problem arising. And if we wanna go that route, I think we should probably further amend that first statement so that it's clear that the policy would be, you have employees who were hired at the time when they met all these criteria, and then they develop a family relationship after that. That's what we're talking about here. That would, I think the intent, Council Register, let me know if I've got this right, is that would be okay unless, under the circumstances, there was a particular problem, identified.
Correct, so we just got rid of, starting where?
Just get rid of if a problem or potential problem is identified, and then it will read exactly the same as it did, is that correct?
Well, except when somebody has to quit.
Where possible. Get rid of the word possible. That's the original one that says where possible.
In the original one, it would say that if they became immediate family or began sharing living quarters, that one of them, and the potential problems noted above does this, then one of the problems, or I'm sorry, only one of the employees may be allowed to remain in the same division. So I suppose that's the same thing then, if you remove my line in the next paragraph, then that is the same thing, that they don't have to be removed, correct? Because it almost looks like they have to be removed if they have a relationship.
Correct, that is current policy, and it still says, my concern is it still says that, even with your amendment.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So if you're looking at that second to last paragraph where it says, you know, that they begin an immediate family relationship, and then it says, and in the city's judgment, the potential problems noted above exist or could exist, only one of the employees may be allowed to remain in the same department or division. So are we saying that if they form a relationship, then one of them automatically has to be removed, or that's still going to be up to the city or their management?
Yeah, my only intent here, based on the way that this thing looked like it was going, was to capture your intent.
Right.
And I think we can do that if you look at that version and you eliminate, third line from the bottom of that second to last paragraph, quarters with one another with the intention of forming a domestic relationship, and in the city's judgment, eliminate the rest of that paragraph. A problem or potential problem is identified. One or both of the affected employees will be given the option. So, in my opinion, what that does is it clarifies that if you have two employees that get together and form a domestic relationship after meeting each other at work, presumably, neither one of them would be required to leave the department unless, in the city's judgment, a problem or potential problem is identified.
Because in the way it sits right now, it does seem like it's repeated. So that's what I was trying to avoid. So what we have right now is that if it's an immediate family relationship or begin sharing living quarters with one another with the intention of forming a domestic relationship, and in the city's judgment, the potential problems noted above exist or could exist, only one of the employees may be allowed to remain in the same department or division. So something added in there that says that if it's identified, correct? That if the problem is actually identified and not just, oh, well, you guys are together now, so somebody has to leave.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
And just to clarify, I understood that to be your intent.
Yes,
based
yes.
on what you put here and what you said.
Right. So we would remove that underlined part in the last sentence. And this is.
So with this one, zero.
I'm making that motion there.
Yeah, and then he's got his version there.
Mr. Hilty, is the ambiguity though creating a situation where we could have liability? Because how do you identify a problem, and who gets to say what a problem is, so that then somebody could say, it wasn't a problem for us, but somebody suddenly determines that it is, and now we're requiring somebody to leave. But we were okay with problem before, the word problem being in there before.
That was already
Now we're not
there.
okay with that either. The way it's coming out right now is causing me to ask this question, because it does create really subjectivity.
No, the way that it was written before basically said that if you have a relationship with somebody, then somebody has to quit. That's basically what it says. So I know of people at the police department who had a relationship who lied about where they were living and did not report it because of the way that the policy is, and like we discussed, it is keeping us from hiring good employees.
I understand, I still have a question for legal.
Well, I get it, that's why we changed in the wording.
So, Mr. Hilton, do you mind, you have something, right, that you think meets the intent of what council register has? Do you mind reading what you have, and then we can make them, like I said, there's a motion on the table, so this would be amended if approved, and we can vote on that.
Happy to answer questions as well. So I'm gonna start, if you look at the second to last paragraph on this version, on the very right margin, right in the middle, there's the word if. Y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna start with that sentence. If employees marry, become related in an immediate family relationship, or begin sharing living quarters with one another with the intention of forming a domestic relationship, and in the city's judgment, skip down, a problem or potential problem is identified, one or both of the affected employees will be given the option to transfer to another position in the city for which he or she is qualified. So I think that captures
That is
the
correct.
intent.
I guess we're good.
Yes.
To Councilor Williams' concern, right, now whether that's the right policy for the city or not is up to you guys. I just wanted to sort of clarify a potential ambiguity.
Thank you.
Okay, so is that, do you accept that
Yes,
amended
thank you.
there? And then you're the seconder, correct, so you accept that as well? Okay, so we still have that motion on the floor, from Councilor Register, seconded by Councilor Doty, as amended. And with that, Madam Clerk, if you.
So, Mr. Mayor, just point of order, point of clarification.
Yeah.
I need to understand fully exactly what it is we're voting on. We've now made, to my count, 1, 2, 3 changes to this document. So I need to know exactly what it is we're voting on, 'cause I'm unclear.
So, yeah, perhaps either Mr. Hilke or Council Register, perhaps just read the policy as you want it to be written. Does that work?
Yeah, I will. The city may employ immediate family members of current city employees, as long as such employment would not create a conflict of interest or potential for unethical behavior. No person shall be employed by the city when the employment would result in a violation of provisions found in Idaho Code, including but not limited to Section 18-1359 and 74-401 and Sec. Candidates and/or employees are responsible for disclosing any relationships as identified within this policy. The city permits the employment of qualified relatives of employees as long as, A, no person shall become employed in a department or division of a department where a related employee serves in a supervisory capacity and would directly supervise, appoint, remove, or discipline a relative. B, a person would not handle or have access to confidential material that would create improper or inappropriate access to the material by the relative. C, such employment does not, in the opinion of the mayor, city council, or human resources director, create actual or perceived conflicts of interest. And D, the individual is not an immediate family member or relative of the third, says of the third, second degree.
I think they changed that from the third to the second
Okay,
last time.
so, or a relative of the second degree to the mayor or city council. Immediate family is identified in section 7J, bereavement. These criteria will also be considered when assigning, transferring, or promoting an existing employee. Any supervisor involved in a romantic relationship with a subordinate must immediately notify his or her department manager or appointed official of the existence of any such relationship, and efforts will be made to eliminate supervisory responsibility and or reporting. If employees marry, become related in an immediate family relationship, or begin sharing living quarters with one another with the intention of forming a domestic relationship, and in the city's judgment, a problem or potential problem is identified, one or both of the affected employees will be given the opportunity to transfer to another position in the city for which he or she is qualified. Where transfer is not an option, one of the affected employees will have to resign or be terminated. The affected employees may be given the opportunity to decide between themselves which employee will transfer or resign. The decision must be made within 30 days of the date they marry, become related, or begin sharing living quarters with each other. No decision is made during this time. The Human Resources Director and the Mayor will make the decision based on the best interest of the city.
Good. Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
to debate the motion.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hilty. I think I understand what's on this document now, and I appreciate your work on it, Mr. Mayor and council members, but this goes to show that more time needs to be spent on this. We're trying to jam this through tonight so that it can get done tonight, and we're doing this legislation on the fly. We're not changing one word, we're changing total meaning of this. And so even what we put on the agenda is different. Even what the public thinks that we're voting on tonight is a different document. And I'll say this one more time, Mayor, and then I'll get off of it, but we have a problem in this community right now with our police department, in case nobody's watched the news. And we're going to bring someone in that's going to have a very difficult and challenging job to do, and that is to get things back on track at the police department. And in the meantime, a few weeks before he or she is hired, we're changing the way that this person can hire and fire people without listening to what they have to say. And not only are we not listening to what that person has to say, which is only going to, I think, Mayor, your goal is to do this in 2 months. There's no reason that we can't put this off for 2 months. The other issue is we haven't heard from our new fire chief as to what his opinion is on this. I think for me, that's an important piece of information to have. You're talking about the 2 biggest departments that we have in the city of Caldwell, and the most high profile, the police and the fire. And we're going to ram this down and vote on it tonight. What we should be doing is sitting down with Mr. Hilty and sitting down with Mrs. Register and making sure that this is ready to go before we vote on it. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to be voting no against the motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor.
I don't think we rammed this anywhere, and John, it just seems like to me that if anything doesn't go the way you want it to go, we have second motions and we keep delaying
So
and delaying.
be careful to not make it personal. Keep it
I'm just
related
saying,
to
that's
the-
what it seems like to me.
I also just want to note that we did table this once before, so we all have had time to come up with something. And also, it's on the agenda, so if the new fire chief wanted to be here, he's had every notice to be able to be here. And if we bring in a police chief who does not want to hire employees, this does not require him to hire anybody, it just says that he can. So if he has an issue with it, he doesn't have to do it.
Any other debate on the motion? So, okay, with that, Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Register,
Yes.
McGee. No. Stoddard,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
Williams.
No.
So the motion passes 3-2. I think we've got it, at least on the recording for sure, so, that probably not gonna do us any good than what we did, but I appreciate you, reading that, Mr. Hilty, so we do have that, we can make sure we get that correct. Appreciate the passion, but I would ask that we do, obviously, differences of opinions are good things, but we need to make sure we continue to respect each other, keep it professional, and keep it on the topic and on the matter at hand, in the discussion of it.
And for the record, I still respect Councilman McGee.
I appreciate that, very good, thank you so much. Okay, so that would conclude, that item, and then that moves us finally to new business. So we are now at new business item number 1. This is a quasi judicial hearing for case number SUB 21-40. This is a request by Woodhaven Properties, Inc. for approval of preliminary plat for Woodhaven subdivision, a low-density residential development consisting of 4 residential lots on 1.28 acres, located on the northwest corner of Polk Street and North Indiana Avenue, Caldwell, Idaho. A hearing is examined and forward this case with the recommendation of approval on March 22nd, 2022. With that, Mr. Root, the time is yours. So, Okay.
Mr. Mayor and council, Debbie Root, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. This case is a pretty straightforward infill development. The applicant is requesting a preliminary plat approval for 4 single-family residential lots in an R1 zone on 1.28 acres. The development will require that Butte Drive be continued on through to Indiana. And again, it is straightforward. They did have to remove 1 lot for, the purpose of having an actual buildable lot within that, they originally proposed 5. Staff is recommending approval of the development as proposed, and I will stand for questions.
Any questions?
Any questions from council for Ms. Root? Okay, very good, thank you so much. So we have 1 person signed up in favor, Mr. Walker. If you'll please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 8 minutes. Whether you want to use them all or not is up to you, but you will have 8 minutes to make your presentation to council. Very good, oh, sorry, can we get 1 more, or? That's all right, so. So, we do have, is this a copy of your slideshow?
It is.
Excellent, so we'll label this CC, 1000, and I will give a copy to Ms. Root, or Ms. Root, Ms. Kaiser. Same first name, different last name, so. Oh, so sorry, so this will be 1001. 1000 is the report summary provided by Ms. Root, and then 1001 will be a copy of the PowerPoint that we are about to look at, so. Okay, the time is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Wagner and council members. Thank you for this evening and your time. Jay Walker, Kimley Horn, seems to me that we've got a couple of us here tonight. My office at 849 East State Street, Eagle Idaho 82616. Really appreciate staff and the hearing examiner. As mentioned, we comply with conditions of this application and also meet the requirements, ordinances, and codes, and we'll continue that way through the civil design effort of this project. And both staff and hearing examiner have recommended approval. So it is simple, and I appreciate Debbie's, am I not doing word on finding? Oh, maybe. No? Okay, you want to, you my van away. Wow. And, so this is 1.28 acres, and, a good little infill project. And as mentioned, it's R1 in zoning, and we're meeting that. We have proposing 4 lots. Those lots all exceed the R1 low-density residential requirement and also meet comprehensive land use map. And that's 8,000 square feet on the internal and 9,500 on the corner lots. So 4 common lots. We want to advance to the next slide. So there's the zoning map, consistent with your low-density residential. Next slide. Land use comp plan, low density is well shown in that, and consistent with all the surrounding sites R1 that are existing. So 4 buildable lots, 2 common, and the average lot size is 9,500, almost 9,600 on the 0.22 acres. So, next slide, Fran, thank you. Oh, no, just fine. We are extending Butte Drive as requested, and there is 15 feet Indiana Avenue landscape buffer to that collector and 10 feet on Polk Street. And as requested, this project provides the infrastructure improvement and connectivity that were recommended in the March 18th letter from the engineers review, and we made all the agency comments, including on the next slide. Brent? No, that's all right, no meetings during this. Triangle at intersection of Indiana and Polk, on both U and Indiana, and we don't have any direct access on Indiana or Polk as requested and required. Lot 2 takes access from Butte Avenue, and we are orienting that lot such that it faces Polk with a 20-foot setback and maintaining that 50-foot setback consistency. We'll use cluster mailboxes, and we have the landscape buffers. We are proposing to dedicate the right-of-way and do the improvements necessary on Indiana and Polk. And we did meet with fire department and with Canyon Hill Irrigation District, and are consistent with their recommendations and proposals on all features of our preliminary plat. And I'll stand for questions, but we respectfully request approval of the preliminary plat consistent with your hearing examiner and the staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walker. Any questions from council for Mr. Walker? Okay, very good. We do have, one person that signed up in neutral, for this request, Robert, I think, is it Norrell? I do not believe he is here. On one spur, and I don't know if he maybe have signed up on the accident, or accidentally signed up on the wrong one, but that is the only person that signed up in neutral opposition. He does not look like he is here in that regard. So that would mean that you don't need to come back up, Mr. Walker, unless there's any questions from council from Mr. Walker that maybe we're gonna wait to ask till after. Okay, very good. Is there a motion to close the public, hearing, or public testimony portion of this hearing? Is there a second? So we have a motion from Councilor Stonick, a second from Councilor McGee to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Very good. So with that, now we'll move us forward into if there was any questions for staff, they are still free game if you have that, or any discussion amongst yourself in regards to this request, or a motion is always appropriate as well if you want to go that direction.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor McGee.
for a motion.
Yes.
The mayor and the city council accept the comprehensive plan analysis, findings of fact, and conclusions of law contained herein, and based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law, the mayor and city council hereby order that case number SUV 21-000040, a preliminary plat for Woodhaven subdivision consisting of 4 single-family residential lots with an average residential lot size of 9,597 square feet in a R1 zone on parcel R34900014 is approved, with the conditions listed in section 10.
Very good. So we have a motion from Councilor McGee, second from Councilor Doty, to approve the request, for the subdivision of, let me get this right, Woodhaven subdivision. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
McGee?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Stonick?
Yes.
Doty?
Yes.
Register?
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. Is there a motion to close this public hearing?
So,
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion from Councilor Stonick, second from Councilor Register to close this public hearing item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Walker. You have a good night. So that moves us on to action item number 2, back to our good bills and ordinances, so keep your cheat sheet close by. We'll go through it. We have actually a few of these coming up. So the first one is the Annex Mason Creek Landing Subdivision Phase 3 into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District with a request to waive the rules and pass on the first reading. And just to note that these, now, here's the question. Can we do these next 3 items as one, Mr. Hopi? We can't? Okay, well, we tried. And this does not have a summary for publication, so, item in red, you can ignore that on this one. So, okay, Mr. Orton, you have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Makes me happy because we can give the staff report for all three at the same time.
Okay, very good. Then I'll give you 45 seconds.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanna make sure we're not interrupting Mr. Orton eating. Is he ready to go?
Close, all right, getting around. One quick correction on action item number 4, Masterson Ranch, I have a little typo that we propagated there in the agenda, so I apologize for that, Masterson Ranch, but it is correct in the document. I think what this is a developer makes a request to be annexed into the Caldwell Irrigation District, which is to become a part of the irrigation district. We pool the water rights that are pertinent to their property and then provide them fresh ice, irrigation, and we operate and maintain and own their fresh ice irrigation pump station. So they make this kind of a request when that occurs. And so with that, I will stand for your questions.
Okay, any questions from the council for Mr. Orton? Okay, very good, then we will take these up, one at a time. So the first is bill number 24, ordinance number 3418. I will read this by title only. An ordinance of the city of Caldwell, Idaho, annexing a portion of property within the corporate city limits into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District of the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, directing the city engineer to alter the boundary map accordingly, declaring the intent of the city to pool water rights, and apply a uniform method of allocating assessments and charges, and providing an effective date. Do we have a, oh, yes, okay, was that Councilor Williams or McGee?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay, Councilor Williams.
Move to sponsor bill number 24, ordinance.
Actually, go to motion number 1.
First one.
Very good.
Am I?
Oh, sorry, right here.
Oh, I gotta do that one first? I thought we didn't have to do that, because these are.
No, we still have to waive the three reading process. You don't have to do the summary for publication.
No, you still do it.
That was just right, you got 2 more strikes.
Reading process and consider bill number 24, ordinance 3418 on its first reading by title only.
Excellent. Is there a second? I guess we have a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor McGee, to waive the 3 reading process, consider bill number 24, ordinance number 3418 on its first reading by title only. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Williams?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Dottie?
Yes.
Register?
Yes.
McGee?
Very good. Is there a motion to sponsor bill number
I'm
24?
gonna try that one.
Go for it.
Okay. I move to sponsor bill number 24, ordinance 3418. Move for its passage by title only.
That's it. Very good. Is there a second? Second. I guess we have a motion from Councilor Register and a second from Councilor Stoddard, for the sponsorship of bill number 24, ordinance number 3418, move for its passage by title only. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Register?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
McGee? Jody?
Yes.
Dottie?
Yes.
Very good. And that concludes that item. That has been approved. That moves us to new business action item number 3. Consider bill number 25, ordinance number 3419. And this is the first will be to waive the 3 reading process and consider this bill by title only. Title reading, an ordinance of the city of Caldwell, Idaho, annexing a portion of property within the corporate city limits into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District of the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, directing the city engineer to alter the boundary map accordingly, declaring the intent of the city to pool water rights and apply a uniform method of allocating assessments and charges and providing an effective date. Is there a motion to waive the 3 reading process?
Mayor.
Yes, Councilor.
Practice makes perfect.
Here we go.
I move to waive the 3 reading process and consider bill number 25, ordinance number 3419 on its first reading by title only.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Williams, second from Councilor McGee, to waive the 3 reading process and consider it on its first reading by title only. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Williams?
Yes.
Register?
Yes.
Dottie?
Yes.
McGee? Jody?
Yes.
Very good. Motion passes. Do you have a sponsor of this bill and ordinance?
I'll do it again.
Okay, Councilor Register.
I move to sponsor bill number 25, ordinance 3419, and move for its passage by title only.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a motion, or, a motion for Councilor Register to sponsor bill number 25, ordinance number 3419, and a second from Councilor Stoddard. All those in, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Register?
Yes.
McGee?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Jody?
Yes.
Dottie?
Yes.
Very good. That motion passes. 2 down, 1 to go. Then we move on to action item number 4. This is for bill number 26, ordinance number 3420. an ordinance of the city of Caldwell, Idaho, annexing a portion of property within the corporate city limits into the Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District of the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, directing the city engineer to alter the boundary map accordingly, declaring the intent of the city to pool water rights and apply a uniform method of allocating assessments and charges and providing an effective date. So is there a motion?
Mayor,
Councilor Williams.
so I move to waive the three reading process and consider bill number 26, ordinance 3420 on its first reading by title only.
Is there a second? Motion from Councilor Williams, second by Councilor McGee. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Williams,
Yes.
Doty,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Stoddard,
Yes.
Register.
Yes.
Very good. Is there a motion for a sponsor of this bill and ordinance?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Stoddard.
I move to sponsor bill number 26, ordinance number 3420, move for its passage by title only.
Is there a second? Is there a motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor McGee, I believe? Yes. Okay, very good. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Stoddard,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
Register, Williams,
Yes.
Doty.
Okay, very good. That gets us through those. Now we're humming. The fine-tuned machinery. That moves us on to acceptance of the finance report. Councilor Williams, keep going.
Mr. Mayor, the Finance Committee has reviewed current accounts payable in the amount of $2,620,172.44 for the period ending April 13th, 2022, a net payroll of $530,609.61 for pay period ending March 26th, 2022 and March 31st, 2022. I move that accounts payable in the amount of $2,620,172.44, represented by check numbers 160988 through 161299, and payroll for the amount of $530,609.61, represented by check numbers 37106 through 37194, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, and vouchers filed in the office of the city clerk.
Very good. Do we have a second for the acceptance of the finance report?
Second.
Is there a motion from Councilor Williams, second from Councilor Register to accept the finance report as read? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, council reports. Mr. Register, let's start with you.
I don't have any right, I've spoken enough.
Okay, that's all right. So, Councilor Stoddard.
Mr. Mayor, on the Caldwell Veterans Memorial Hall deal, Mr. McDonald did make contact with Mr. Harold, and I believe that's moving forward on that handicap issue we had on the west side of the building. On the airport board, I think, as you probably noticed tonight, there's definitely a communication problem, and I think at our next meeting, we're gonna get that solved. So we're gonna move forward with that, make sure everybody gets satisfied, and that's all I have.
Sounds great, appreciate that, thank you for, so those that don't know, Councilor Stoddard is the liaison with the airport, so appreciate you helping out there and getting them moving in the right direction. Councilor Doty.
I've already mentioned a lot of my report earlier tonight, but I do want to apologize to Councilor McGee. He's certainly been an asset to me as a new council member, and I appreciate his guidance, and I hope he continues to do that for me. So, just on this one issue, we had a little hiccup, and I'm learning, so I appreciate when he offers me his guidance. So, thank you.
Very good, thank you, appreciate that. Councilor Williams.
Yeah, I just want to say it's obviously very public. It was even mentioned tonight once or twice. Police department's going through some challenges right now, but I think overall we have one of the finest police departments in the state, and it goes without saying that the council appreciates what our police department does and how they're bearing up under some unique and challenging circumstances, and they appreciate our support.
Very good, thank you so much. Councilor McGee.
Councilman Doty, you're forgiven.
And that's on the record.
Thank you, Councilor McGee. I don't know how I was gonna sleep tonight. Appreciate that.
Very good, excellent, thank you so much. And yes, and we realize, sometimes things, we're gonna disagree, which is a good thing. Like we talked about, we get to a good solution on that, and appreciate at the end of the day, we can still disagree, but still, be friends. And so I do appreciate that and the different viewpoints from each of the council members and respect that. Just a few things. I know that we had talked about having an executive session. Obviously, we're not tonight. We may in the future, but, mostly for potential litigation that's gonna be coming before us. But just, and this can be said, just be, you're gonna be receiving a lot of emails, you're gonna be receiving a lot of phone calls, in regards to a lot of rumors that are going on. Obviously, there are some facts out there, but those do get embellished a lot. And so just, I guess my advice is to take it with a grain of salt. If you need to go to a source to try to get some answers, do that. Reach out to me, reach out to Mr. Hilty, in that regards. And, anything that we can bring before you will, make sure you're aware of that. We don't want you to be caught blindsided. If you do, to be honest, on some of these issues, I am as well. And I hate reading about things on paper that I didn't know about, but, I've got a great, open communication with Lieutenant Wright. We are meeting on a daily basis. He's, apprising me of any situations. They said there's a few things that came out this week that I was not aware of, but we were able to sit down and able to just tell me everything that's out there that we know of. And so, I appreciated him and what he's doing and the other lieutenants also. So we're moving in a great direction. Yeah, we're excited. We have those interviews this Friday. On that, so we actually are going to be interviewing 6 individuals that applied for the position. So we've got some really great candidates, excited to sit down with them, discuss that. I appreciate Councilor Williams and Councilor Register for being willing to sit on that committee, to take time Friday to do that. So that's what we'll be doing all day Friday. So I'm excited for that, to move in that direction. Maybe one thing too, just to note, since this did come up tonight, just to put this on your radar so you're aware of it. As we continue to look at, how can we improve things, how can we, simplify things moving forward, one of those actually is a potential ordinance change, for subdivisions. So this is something similar to that last request that we had, where it's a very simple request. They're complying with all, it's actually still up on there, where it complies with all the ordinance requirements, all standards, things like that, of making that actually an administrative process rather than coming to a hearing. And again, that will only be for very simple cases like this. The one before that, even though it was simple, those would still have to come here, because you may have neighbors that have concerns if they're looking at annexing, rezoning, a PUD, anything out of the ordinary, still come to council, but you'll probably be seeing that before chilling in. It's just to try to, obviously, this is just such a simple thing, and if they can just do it at a staff level, on those things, again, it would be, everything has to comply with it. If there's any variation or anything like that, it would have to come to council for review. So you'll probably see that before too long. Again, it helps staff losing some of their time on that, helps here in the hearing as well, in that regard. So that would conclude, my remarks. Just appreciate everyone and everything you do for the city, and the future is very bright. We're looking forward to that. And again, thank you, Mr. Larson, for coming tonight. So I don't think anybody holds a grudge against you for bringing that back up. We're grateful you're here and being a part of it. It's so important, especially, this new generation. So invite your friends and get people involved. It's so important in the city. So with that, I would stand for a motion to adjourn. So we have a motion from Councilor Stanek, a second from Councilor McGee, to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned.
Goodbye.
Hey, we kept you later than that. No? No? Were we later this time, okay? Yeah. What happened when you don't come? Okay. I don't agree with you there.
like having the provider relationship.
Outstanding. I think Jeff's still figuring himself out. Oh, no, he wants to move out, and he's already told us he wants to move out. But I think he's on a journey, I paint grandmother a lot more than I'm a little more, where I'm sitting on something, and she was, I mean, there's some things I really wish wouldn't happen, and I hope they don't, but they're not the end of the world, bro, figure it out. So, your brain's starting to develop.
Maybe I thought your kids are, hi, how are you? You were doing so much better than your kids. Knowing this, I'm like, you go, start.
Nice shirt.
We were here waiting for you.